The highest bounty CH 61-90. Chapter 61. Gilding refused to allow Liliath to carry him no matter what. Left with no choice, Liliath could only lend Gilding an arm as she supported him all the way to the space dock. After they entered the space dock, Neptune immediately took over the space dock's system and shut the door. This door was constructed with a special alloy. Even if it were hit with 100 tons of force, it would not change its shape whatsoever. It could also stop all forms of viral infections from entering. Inside the space dock, there was a complete range of system functions. Even though it had already been more than 10 years, the majority of its functions still worked perfectly. This was also one of the reasons why Cooper had chosen to use this place as the base. Gilding had only ever seen pictures of the spaceship during its repair. Under the sunlight, the polished metal surface of the spaceship produced a bright golden luster. This gray-faced buzzard-grade spaceship looked just as it did in the picture Gilding saw on Skynet. Its entire body was constructed with 3 titanium alloy and pyrite. Huge amounts of Mexalin were also added as supplementary material. The total capacity was more than 600 cubes approximately, a completely different ballgame compared to Gilding's previous Kitty Hawk model. It looks awesome. Gilding's eyes sparkled as he stared at the ship in awe. He stroked his hands across the spaceship's enormous side wing. The metal's sturdy texture was transmitted to Gilding's brain through his fingertips. He could even feel ever so faintly that the spaceship seemed to be pouring out something to him. Before this spaceship was laid aside, it had been used for over 50 years. Right now, it already has a history of hundreds of years. In no time, Neptune had found the previous navigational records of this spaceship. From its production serial number, this is also a first-generation gray-faced buzzard. If you fly this ship out there, I guarantee that many wealthy people will offer a handsome price to take it off your hands. Gray-faced buzzard-grade spaceship itself is priced between 1 to 3 billion star credits. I reckon people would be willing to pay even if it costs tens of billions of star credits. It will be too great a luxury for an interstellar pirate to fly this one. You can consider selling it then, essentially exchanging it for a completely new gray-faced buzzard. Its performance will be so much better than this model. Moreover, it's half as big as this model, much more agile when operated, Neptune suggested. I'm not changing it. I want this one. Gilding shook his head firmly. Ever since he first laid eyes on this spaceship, he knew that it belonged to him. I think it's quite nice as well, Liliath agreed. Although it's a little old-fashioned, I think there's a rich history behind it. Right now, this spaceship is only equipped with certain basic functions. If you want to restore it, the maintenance fee will certainly be a hefty amount. Luckily, the fellow who was infected with the viral contagion has a lot of valuable items in his inventory. I think he had also made a lot of preparations as he planned on leaving this planet. Neptune did not voice out any more objections. Not that he disliked the spaceship, but from a rational point of view, swapping it for a new spaceship was clearly a better choice. Let's go in and take a look, Gilding said to Liliath. Taking him by the arm, the two took off exploring the interior. After entering the spaceship and seeing the internal decor, Gilding was even more resolute in his decision. I will not sell this spaceship even if I was offered 100 billion. Liliath nodded vigorously in agreement upon coming across a cozy room. After taking a tour around the spaceship, Gilding had no plans of going out. He stumbled into the room nearest to the cockpit and sat down straight away. This will be my room from now on. Liliath chose the one opposite to his. This isn't too bad either. It'll be easier for us to drop in on each other next time. If you plan on using this spaceship in the long run, then it needs to be repaired at the earliest opportunity. Based on the current situation, I estimate that this spaceship will turn into scraps after flying another 3 to 5 times, at most. Neptune knew that Gilding had already made up his mind, hence he offered his opinion. Let's drop by Fennu and then we'll find a planet to fix the spaceship. Gilding nodded. We're still going to Fennu? Neptune was taken aback. Then, he explained, actually, according to our current coordination, we have already passed Fennu. After we leave this gray star sector and continue on a bit further, we should be able to return to the original route. There's no need to double back, is there? Is that so? But I promised Mr. Modican to meet him there. Gilding scratched his head. Dad mentioned before that a man can be dishonest, but he must keep his promises. We'd better drop by. All right, Then it makes no difference where I am anyway. You decide on the target destination and I'll just navigate the spaceship. Neptune did not oppose it. It'd be better if you briefed Lily on the navigation destination. Fenny Yuan sounds great. I wanted to take a look at first. I heard that there are many professional pharmacologists. On top of that, the cost of medicine is also cheaper. After hearing about Gilding's destination, Liliath agreed once more. In the next 2 days, Gilding had finally recovered from his injuries. Neptune was also navigating the spaceship, leaving the planet's atmosphere in no time. Gilding. The body of the viral infection is not dead. Once his injuries have fully healed, he will definitely return to space dock, remodel another spaceship, and find an opportunity to leave this planet. Outside the planet, Neptune made sure not to fly away instantly. Instead, he took a second to talk to Gilding. If he carried those viral infection bodies and left this planet, who knows how many people will be infected with this virus and turn into the virus puppets. After hearing that, Liliath frowned slightly as well. Why don't we destroy the space dock? Indeed, we can't allow him to escape. He looks just like any ordinary person. Once he arrives at another planet, his mind could turn completely dormant, and the virus will have a window to infect others. Gilding was fully aware of the severity of the threat. Neptune destroyed the space dock. Controlling the antimatter cannon of the spaceship, Neptune aimed at the space dock. A light beam shot out of the spaceship's cannon deck, immediately obliterating the space dock. The blast from the explosion could be seen erupting into the atmosphere, bright and colorful like fireworks. Right after, the second and third light beams were shot out consecutively. On the planet, 2 more blinding flares shot out into the sky. Gilding and Liliath saw this scene and were both pretty startled. What are you doing? I've destroyed the research institution. I've also destroyed the power system that maintains network operations. If the information in the research institute lands in the hands of the wrong people, they may recreate similar viruses. After destroying the power system, even if the infected fellow is still alive and reconstructs a spaceship, he won't be able to replenish enough power for the spaceship to leave this planet, Neptune explained. Let's go then. Gilding waved his hand. Next station, Fenny Yuan. Chapter 62. Grey-faced Buzzard was much faster than the Kitty Hawk model. In less than a day, Gilding and Liliath had arrived in Fenny Yuan. When Grey-faced Buzzard of more than 30 meters was docked at the port, it attracted many onlookers. Gilding's grey-faced Buzzard was indeed quite old now. The rest of the same models had already fallen into collectors' hands, rarely making appearances on the market. Needless to say, flying it out so casually certainly drew the eyes of plenty. Seeing that 2 children walked out of the grey-faced Buzzard, many were left rather surprised. A seemingly clever and young dealer moved closer to Gilding. Brother, are you selling this spaceship? Larry, I've warned you so many times. Stop harassing tourists at the port who come to Fenny Yuan for vacation. A hunky man clad in police attire walked over. With one hand on his waist, he grabbed the young man by the collar of his shirt, effortlessly lifting him up. Uncle Bobby. Good morning. A hint of helplessness flashed across the young man's face. He knew instantly who the voice belonged to. Under Bobby's watchful eyes, Larry left the port dejectedly. Only then did Bobby turn around and gave Gilding and Liliath a heartwarming smile. Good morning, young friends. Thank you, Uncle Bobby, Gilding answered with a smile. The person earlier, what's his occupation? Liliath was somewhat curious. Larry, that fellow doesn't actually have ill intent. He's just a spaceship broker. He helps wealthy people in seeking out valuable spaceships, buying them at a low price, and drawing a percentage of the sale. To be fair, many people make a living doing the same thing. But Fenny Yuan banned them from harassing tourists at the port. This is to avoid leaving a bad impression on Fenny Yuan's first-time visitors. Bobby explained, of course, if you really wanted to sell your spaceship, you could cut a deal with Larry. The prices he offers are typically reasonable. We're not planning on selling this spaceship. Gilding smiled. Bobby took a look at the grey-faced Buzzard behind them. A stunned expression plastered across his face. From his experience of working at the port for so many years, he could quickly identify that it was a first-generation grey-faced Buzzard. Of course, he also knew the corresponding value for this. He could not help but unwittingly attach a label on Gilding and Liliath in his heart. Direct descendants of a wealthy family. Uncle Bobby, is there a means of transportation nearby that can send us to the Hermione Alliance? Gilding had asked Neptune to search the map. The Hermian Alliance division on this planet was located nearly 1,000 kilometers away from the port. "You're a pharmacologist?" No matter how Bobby looked at Gilding, he looked like he was no older than 14 to 15 years old. If he could obtain a pharmacology certificate at such a young age, then he was no doubt a genius. "I've made an appointment to meet someone there." "Oh." Bobby realized suddenly, pharmacologists were qualified to bring people into the Hermian Alliance. From Gilding's reply, he could tell that he was not a pharmacologist yet, but his friend was. After finding out about the relationship, he seemed to have thought of something. "I'll ask Larry to send you there then. He is really eager to get to know some pharmacologists and will definitely do it for free." As he said that, Bobby dialed Larry's communicator, with his back facing Gilding. He spoke in their local language before hanging up. Then, he turned around and said, "He'll come this instant." Larry's brother is a rank 4 gene body martial arts practitioner. Because he purchased an E-grade gene enhancer and failed to level up, his gene chain is damaged, paralyzing his entire body. Now, he's been trying to find a pharmacologist to purchase a bottle of E-grade gene repair agent for his brother. However, the market price is a few times more than making a direct purchase from a pharmacologist. Even standard quality medicine is sold at a minimum of 10 million star credits. Right now, he has earned less than 30,000 star credits. Neptune had obtained a lot of information from their conversation. He passed on this information to Gilding. Bobby was telling him earlier, asking him to find a chance to get to know your pharmacology friend, to see if he can purchase a bottle of gene repair agent at a lower price. Gilding nodded his head after hearing it. Bobby was a warm-hearted policeman indeed. As for the gene repair agent, Gilding had never made them before. He would like to have the opportunity to try it out as well. Larry rushed over in no time. "Oh, my distinguished guests, please forgive me for my imprudence earlier. As a native of Feniyuan, I know this planet very well and can serve as your tour guide. Uncle Bobby said that you want to go to the Hermian Alliance. I can bring you there. Let's go then." Gilding nodded. Along with Liliath, the trio hopped into the hovercar in front of them. "My guests, you came at just the right time." In the last few days, Master Modican happened to make a stop in Feniyuan. After entering the Hermian Alliance, there is a high chance of you meeting him, Larry said rather excitedly. "How many days has Master Modican been there?" Gilding could not help but ask. He knew that he had been trapped in the Grey Star sectors for quite some time now, but he had no idea how long Modican had waited for him. "Nearly a week now. I heard that he stays in his private medicine refinement room and doesn't accept guests." The first day he arrived, he had a quick meet-up with the division chairperson. "Someone said that Master Modican is researching a new gene medicine that's related to a gene virus we have here. That's why he stayed for so long." Larry told them the news he had heard from others. He gave his opinions as well, saying, "I think it's also due to the interstellar storm that has not passed. It isn't safe to set out on a journey without making careful considerations right now. But, no matter what, his stopover has brought many young pharmacologists swarming here like madmen. In a way, Feniyuan is livelier now because of this. Aren't you going to inform Modican that you've arrived?" Neptune's voice rang in Gilding's ears. "We'll see about that when we arrive at Hermian Alliance." Gilding entered these words on the wristwatch screen. "My guest, is your friend the pharmacologist?" Seeing that he had grown slightly closer to them, Larry finally directed the tropic toward his intended direction. "Yes, he's a very proficient pharmacologist." Gilding nodded with a smile. "Very proficient?" Larry's eyes lit up upon hearing that. "D-level?" Gilding only smiled. He did not utter a single word. "C-level?" Larry continued guessing. Gilding's lips were tightly sealed. "It can't be B-level, can it?" Larry asked with suspicion in his heart. B-level pharmacologists were all Hermian Alliance Division chairperson level. At least, all of them had renowned reputations as well as decorated track records. Typically, their names would be mentioned when they came to Feniyuan. But there was no recent news of any B-level pharmacologist coming to Feniyuan. "Perhaps he's meeting our divisional chairperson?" Larry speculated in his heart. "You'll know when we arrive. You can follow us into Hermian Alliance." Gilding smiled. "I can go in too?" Larry heard what he said and was overwhelmed by the unexpected surprise. Although he had always wanted to enter Hermian Alliance, he had never gotten the chance to do so. Unexpectedly, Gilding agreed to bring him in so casually. Of course you can. Gilding is a pharmacologist. He can bring visitors inside straight away. Liliath added, my guest, you're a pharmacologist too? Those who carried the pharmacologist title were those who have earned the pharmacologist qualification certificate. Larry did not expect that the young-looking Gilding had already obtained the pharmacologist qualification certificate. I'm only an F-level pharmacologist, Gilding replied. The trio talked in the car over the entire journey. Approximately more than 3 hours later, the trio finally arrived at Hermione Alliance. Hermione Alliance's entrance gate's large screen was broadcasting a news report. The image on the screen showed a grey-faced buzzard employing an antimatter cannon to blow up a planet. Following that, the image switched out, displaying 2 human faces. They were Smiley Gilding and Pouty Liliath respectively. Wanted fugitive, Gilding. Sex, male. Age, 15. Gene level, unknown. Special ability, unknown. Bounty, 8 million star credits. Crime: destroying the Grey Star Sector's Coeler's ecological environment, damaging the planet's power supply system, and destroying huge amounts of research data. Wanted fugitive, Liliath. Sex, female. Age, 14. Gene level, unknown. Special ability, unknown. Bounty, 6 million star credits. Crime: assisted in destroying the Grey Star Sector's Coeler's ecological environment, damaging the planet's power supply system and destroying huge amounts of research data, destroying the ecological environment. Gilding saw this reason and could not help feeling speechless. Though, it does feel good getting a bounty put on your head. Who took this picture? That's too much. Liliath saw her Pouty picture and threw a tantrum. Both of them. Larry saw the image on the screen and his blood chilled. I won't be mistaken as their accomplice, will I? At this moment, a guard saw Gilding. He whispered into the communicator, I've spotted wanted fugitive Gilding. Apart from Liliath and him, there's another young man. He may be their newly recruited member. In no time, a squadron of guards emerged from the crowd, surrounding the trio. Chapter 63. Although Coeler was located within the Grey Star Sector region, the federal government had already given up on its jurisdiction. Even so, the federal government still possessed some authority, and everything on the planet was the federal government's property. As it happened, the scene in which Neptune destroyed Coeler's space dock, the research institute, and power equipment had been captured by a surveillance satellite. Therefore, Gilding was transformed into a wanted fugitive by the federal government overnight. Even though the interstellar storm had not passed, the signal block was still around. Clearly, the federal government had other means of communication other than Skynet. Hence, they could ignore signal blocks like this. News of the bounty order was spread throughout the entire Skyriver sector. If Gilding did not come to Feniyuan, he might have had to wait until the interstellar storm passed before finding out about his bounty. Feniyuan's bounty notice had just come in this morning, roughly an hour before Gilding and Liliath arrived. On Hermione Alliance's big screen, the notice had been replayed many times. That was why these guards could recognize Gilding and Liliath in a heartbeat. Hermione Alliance is no place for fugitives like you. We only welcome pharmacologists. Please leave or we will inform the military. The head guard stared at Gilding full of vigilance. It was indeed a despicable act to blow up the ecosystem of a planet. This was also the reason why Gilding had such a high bounty on his head. Of course, commoners had no knowledge of what truly happened at Coeler. From what they could see, even though it was a planet with no humans, employing weapons like the antimatter cannon to launch an attack was still classified as an extremely despicable act. On top of that, the criminal charge that the federal government listed did not only involve damaging the ecosystem but also destroying crucial research information and the planet's power system. Such a description left the public with the impression that Gilding was certainly a fellow who had no qualms about committing all sorts of crime. Normally, those with a bounty of millions of star credits on their heads were those of rank 3 gene body, whereas the majority of these guards were only a rank 1 gene body. Therefore, when they encountered Gilding and Liliath, they behaved oddly vigilant. Gilding did not utter a word. He also knew that no matter how he explained himself right now, the other party would never listen. Under such helplessness, he asked Neptune to send a signal to Modican's communicator. Gilding? Modican had saved Gilding's communicator serial number a long time ago. When he saw these serial numbers, He was rather astonished. Has the interstellar storm passed? Which planet are you in? I'll send someone to get you. I'm already on Feniyuan. Gilding lifted his head to look at the screen on top of Hermione Alliance. It was now replaying his wanted order. To be exact, I'm already standing at Hermione Alliance's main entrance. But I bumped into a tiny problem. Wait there. I'm on my way. Modican hung up the call after saying those words. He put on a coat in a hurry and rushed out. I'm here in Feniyuan only to meet a person who has sent me an invitation. I will leave immediately once I get things done. Gilding unfolded his hands, standing on the spot, waiting. Aren't we going in? Liliath felt slightly uneasy being surrounded and watched. Wait a moment. The person whom we're about to meet is coming out soon. Being used to working in the tavern, Gilding looked completely natural instead. Behind them, Larry did not know whether he should stay or leave. Just as he was at a loss on what to do, he saw a familiar face walking out of Hermione Alliance's main entrance. This person is Master Modican? Naturally, Larry had seen Modican's picture. As a star of Skyriver Sector, all kinds of news related to him often appeared on Skynet. Master. When the surrounding onlookers saw Modican, they bowed slightly to address him. Little brother Gilding, you're finally here. Modican walked forward and gave Gilding a bear hug. Then, he turned his attention to Liliath and Larry who stood behind Gilding. Ask your friends to come in together. With that, he wrapped his arms around Gilding's shoulders and walked inside Hermione Alliance. Now, no one attempted to stop them. Liliath pulled a funny face at the head guard. Larry, on the other hand, quickened his pace and caught up with the three of them, afraid that he would fall behind and be barred from entering. After bringing them to Hermione Alliance's meeting hall, he turned to give a command to the service robot at the door, saying, 4 cups of green tea. Use the finest tea leaves we have. Nowadays, tea leaves had lived up to its reputation as a form of luxurious goods. It was also the most commonly used drink for entertaining guests. Take a seat, Modican said to the trio. Palmer may have told you the reason for our meeting this time? Modican was not someone who would beat around the bush. He got straight to business as soon as he started. She didn't mention it directly, but I could sort of guess. Gilding nodded. What Modican was referring to was his desire to take him in as an apprentice. It was true that Palmer did not mention this matter directly as she was afraid that Gilding would reject the idea on the spot. And your answer is? Modican stared at Gilding rather anxiously. He did not even take a look at the teacup that the robot had placed beside his hand. I think it's possible. Gilding broke into a smile. That easy? Modican thought he would have to spend a lot of time persuading him. He was even sketching out in his head the way he would string his words together. He did not expect Gilding to agree straight away. Don't you have anything that you'd like to ask me? For example, how many free medicinal materials you can get per month or the refining skills that I can teach you. That's not necessary. I think Palmer is already very outstanding under your guidance. There's no need for me to ask further questions. Gilding shook his head without hesitation. What are they talking about? Liliath looked at Larry. Confusion was written all over her face. Larry shook his head silently. He had no idea what they were talking about. All right, as per tradition, let me present you with a welcome gift. As he said that, Modican fished out a box from the inventory, handing it to Gilding. Gilding opened the box. It was a full set of B-grade refining equipment. This set of equipment was worth 100 million star credits. He did not expect Modican to gift it away so generously. Beside him, Liliath could not help but sigh in her heart. Pharmacologists are really rich. Thank you, teacher. Gilding gave an apprentice bow. Hearing Gilding refer to him as a teacher, Liliath finally understood that the two were discussing having Gilding as an apprentice earlier. Moreover, in less than 2 minutes, Gilding had bowed to his teacher and received a welcome gift. Larry had not come back to his senses yet. He had only heard Gilding's final words. He asked surprisingly, "You're Master Modican's apprentice?" "Not before, but I am one now." Gilding broke into a grin. "Then can you sell me a bottle of E-grade gene repair agent? I only have 30,000 star credits at the moment. If that's not enough, I will find a way to return the remaining money to you." Larry finally made his purpose for making this trip known. "Teacher, do you have the materials?" Gilding turned his head to look at Modican. He planned to refine a bottle of medicine for Larry by himself. Chapter 64. Modican did not have E-grade medicinal materials in his inventory. After dialing a number and giving some instructions, someone sent the materials over in less than 5 minutes. He only asked for 3 batches, yet they sent 10. Gilding read the prescription that Neptune gave him, took the material, and began refining using the set of B-grade refining equipment he had just received. Watching Gilding's skillful movements, Modican nodded approvingly. "It seems like you have refined this kind of medicine before. You're quite skillful." "I haven't. This is my first time doing it. I just finished reading the prescription." Gilding's movements did not waver as he replied. Modican was taken aback. He did not interrupt Gilding further because, under normal circumstances, it was a form of challenge for pharmacologists to refine a new medicine, especially when they were doing it for the first time. There were no past experiences, hence the failure rate was extremely high. If Gilding had refined this sort of medicine before, Modican could simply say anything to interrupt him and it would not matter. However, this was his first time refining. He would not want his butting in to be the cause of Gilding's failure in refining the medicine. Gilding's refining speed was exceptionally fast. More than 10 minutes later, he was done refining a bottle of medicine. Staring at the faint green medicine in Gilding's hands, Larry looked rather doubtful. He had not heard of any E-grade gene repair agent that had a color like this one. A standard quality E-grade gene repair agent would be aqua blue, good quality would be azure, excellent quality would be light blue, whereas the legendary ultimate quality one would be a green in color. Beside them, Liliath asked in a slightly uncertain manner, "This can't be the perfect E-grade quality gene repair agent, can it?" "You've refined the perfect quality medicine the first try itself." "Earlier, I've only watched you do it on videos. I can't believe that it's so much more interesting watching it on the spot." Modican nodded pleasingly. He had also offered his evaluation. There was not the slightest error in the entire refining process. "You can even call it perfection." "I heard Palmer saying that your medicinal refinement skills are all self-taught. Are these techniques self-taught too?" "Other than reading and graphic materials, I've also watched a lot of video materials." Gilding nodded. "I've also reviewed a lot of materials in the last few years. This also includes certain A-level pharmacologists' competition videos. These are all internal materials shared within the circle. Initially, I planned to arrange and send them to Palmer. I'll transfer them to you first this time. Anthony has also informed me that you agreed to participate in the newcomers ranking competition. It's in more than 2 months. These will be useful for you." As Modican said those words, he packed the materials and sent them to Gilding's mailbox. He handed the bottle of medicine over to Larry, saying, "Take this and use it. This is a perfect quality one." "I can't afford this." Although Larry found it hard to move his attention away from the bottle of medicine in Gilding's hand, he did not stretch out his hands to take it. "The medicinal material is supplied free of charge by Hermione Alliance. My refinement of it will be your reward for sending us here this time." Gilding placed the medicine in Larry's hands. "Besides, I still need to stay 1 to 2 days in Feniyuan. I'll leave when I obtain an E-level pharmacologist license." "Didn't you say that you're familiar with this planet?" "Perfect. You can be our tour guide for the next few days." "That's a deal then." Larry took the medicine in his hands. Carefully, he took out a small box and wrapped it properly before placing it inside the inventory. Hearing that Gilding wanted to take the test for an E-level pharmacologist certification, Modican said, "Gilding, I suggest that you skip the test for the E-level pharmacologist license and participate in the competition with your identity as an F-level pharmacologist. When the competition takes place, you'll definitely stun a bunch of your competitors. I think the situation will be even more interesting then. As for the medicinal materials during this period, I'll supply you with whatever you need." "That sounds good." "Initially, I planned on taking the E-level pharmacologist test to obtain the free E-grade materials so I could do some practice." Modican had solved this problem for him. Of course, there was no need for him to take the E-level pharmacologist test anymore. "You can all stay here for the next few days. Hermione Alliance grants the right to asylum to every pharmacologist. Whether the other party is an interstellar pirate, independent alliance, interstellar hunter, or anything else, Hermione Alliance will offer asylum. The Federation army will not do anything to you here." Modican knew that Gilding had become a wanted fugitive. "I'll stay here over the next few days and leave only after all of you have left to avoid further complications. I need to make a trip back home first. I'll come back again tomorrow morning." Larry was in a hurry to get home so he could inject his brother with the gene repair agent. "Larry, you can head back first if you have things to do. Since I don't need to take the pharmacologist certification test anymore, there's no need for me and Lili to linger too long on this planet. When Lili is done strolling the trading center tomorrow, you can come and pick us up and send us to the port in the morning in 2 days' time. Then, we'll leave Fenyuan on that day." Gilding rearranged the itinerary. After sending Larry away, Modican had asked someone to arrange a place for Gilding and Liliath to stay. "I can't believe that you actually hid it so well. Didn't you tell me that you're an F-level pharmacologist?" Liliath turned one circle around Gilding, sizing up Gilding all over again. "I'm an F-level pharmacologist, that's not a lie. I think it'll be another 3 months before I can take an E-level certification test." Gilding shrugged. Lilian thought very carefully. Gilding was right. She was the one who did not think too much about it from the start. She thought that it was already impressive for Gilding to earn an F-level pharmacologist certification at his age, yet what she did not expect was that she had underestimated Gilding from the start. Even so, she still drummed up her cheeks, asking, "Then why didn't you tell me that you're a genius in pharmacology? Have you ever heard anyone call themselves a genius?" Gilding questioned her instead. "Besides, if I said so at the time, would you believe me?" "I don't care. In the future, you will oversee all the pharmacologists' works. You get free materials. We don't need to spend a cent on leveling up our genes next time." Using this gimmick to recruit members, "I'm sure there will be a bunch of people lining up to join us." "More team members doesn't mean things will be better. It's enough to have me alone as the pharmacologist and it should suffice to have you as the gunner. But we also need some essential professions to fill up the gaps. For example, a chef, a mechanic, a bartender. We can't skimp on powerful main attackers. Apart from you, we still need 1 to 2 more powerful main attackers, at the very least. That's how we can make a strong team." Liliath had also offered her suggestion. Auxiliary professions were certainly important, but a team without main attackers would undoubtedly be weak. If they encountered a formidable enemy, the entire team might risk getting completely wiped out. "Yeah, when we leave Fenyuan and get the spaceship repaired, we'll need to recruit new comrades. The new route will not be one not filled with challenges, that's for sure." Gilding was not naive at all. Coldblood's words were still clearly embedded in his mind. "No matter how powerful you may be, you're still only an individual." Even genius powerhouses like Coldblood had come to understand this. Naturally, Gilding would not arrogantly assume that he could walk his path alone. Chapter 65 Fenyuan was situated on a unique astronomical location near the Grey Star sectors, making it a place where large amounts of biological researchers and pharmacologists flock to. A place with the presence of pharmacologists signifies a place with an astronomical amount of wealth. Of course, only a handful of people knew that it was precisely because of its location that it used to be desolate before the federal government officially took it in as part of its own. This was due to the apprehension everyone had, thinking that one day the Grey Star Sector's virus would spread all the way to this planet. What would they do then? Safe to say this did not happen. Ever since Fenyuan was integrated into the federal government, it had blossomed into a flourishing planet in only a few years. Today, the human population had broken through the 30 billion mark. Fenyuan's port had been one of the most flourishing starports in all the star sectors, even Skyriver sector. Therefore, Fenyuan's federal government division needed to guarantee the safety of the port's ships and keep them out of harm's way from all sorts of threats. For the authorities of a planet, they welcome every guest with the power of consumerism no matter their identity. One could be an interstellar pirate or interstellar hunter, perhaps even someone from dark sectors. They only had one request from these guests: never cause trouble within their jurisdiction. However, the army was a completely different department than the government. They were mainly in charge of capturing wanted fugitives and putting them in jail. When necessary, they would carry out executions. Of course, conflicts would arise as both departments had different responsibilities. The army often spotted interstellar pirates' ships at all kinds of planets' ports. However, due to limited power, They were not allowed to detain the ships directly. Even touching them was a violation of federal law. The only way they could capture fugitives was to capture the wanted criminals themselves. But, if the wanted criminal hid under the asylum of other forces, the army would have to think twice. Hermione Alliance was undoubtedly an enormous organization that had the federal government and the army extremely worried. As a matter of fact, Hermione Alliance housed plenty of wanted criminals from different ends of the galaxy. Almost every well-established interstellar pirate team had at least one pharmacologist. If they were to purchase medicine directly, the entire pirate team might go bankrupt before they were able to make a third of their journey. No one was willing to offend the Pharmacologist Alliance. If the entire alliance joined hands with the medicine refinement factory to go out on a strike, the entire Dragon Saw Cosmic might lose trillions of people to all kinds of diseases in less than a month. This repercussion was one that the federal government could not bear, much more so for the army. Also, in order to nurture soldiers, the army often cooperated with the Hermione Alliance. Hence, if a fugitive went under Hermione Alliance's asylum, their only option was to ignore the fugitive's existence. Gilding and Lilioth were currently enjoying such privilege. The two had strolled through the market and trading center near Hermione Alliance the entire morning. Although some army personnel glowered at the duo, they were only glaring without taking any actions. Lilioth would occasionally pull a funny face to provoke them. The army personnel could only grit their teeth and ignore, turning their faces to the side. Lilioth bought a lot of things along the way. From what Gilding could see, the majority of the items were frivolous purchases. Lilioth even bought certain things with absolutely no idea what they were for. With regards to her actions, Gilding could only sigh in his heart. Dad's right. It's so hard to understand what a woman is thinking. Of course, Lilioth's actions had piqued Gilding's curiosity in finding out how big her inventory really was. After obtaining Cooper's wristwatch, Neptune helped Gilding move everything into his inventory. He had also integrated Cooper's wristwatch inventory into Gilding's, expanding Gilding's inventory to more than 120 cubic meters. However, Gilding was sure that Lilioth's inventory was at least 500 cubic meters because Lilioth had easily placed a beast's carcass inside before. The beast was at least 20 meters high. Its total body volume should be at least 400 cubic meters. Let's have lunch before we continue. Although Gilding was not tired, he thought that it would be a better idea to have lunch and take a quick break. All right then. Even though Lilioth was not done shopping, both Gilding and she had eaten compressed food for days now. After eating all kinds of rich and abundant food on Fenrir in the last 2 days, she found it extremely difficult to reject any sort of delicacy she was presented with. Both of them were about to step into a nearby restaurant when Gilding noticed a familiar-looking car driving approaching them. "Larry, what brings you here?" Gilding recognized Larry's car straight away. "Get in. I'll send you to the port right now. You have to leave Fenrir immediately." Panic was written all over Larry's face. What happened? Gilding recalled telling Larry to come tomorrow. "An interstellar hunter was asking about you at the port early this morning." From what Uncle Bobby was saying, that fellow's name is Ter. He's a rank 6 gene body, a fearless and powerful man. He reportedly captured an interstellar pirate with 100 million bounty on his head in the past. He also has a nickname. You may have heard it before, the Ripper. "Oh, I've heard of this fellow before. He's an interstellar hunter with a really bad reputation. After capturing interstellar pirates, he likes to snap the bones of the captured before handing them over to the Federation army." Gilding was no stranger to this interstellar hunter who had quite a reputation in Skyriver sector. But his targets are typically people with a bounty of more than 50 million star credits. "Why is he coming after me? Are you mistaken?" "I'm not." Uncle Bobby said that a wealthy fellow wants to purchase your gray-faced buzzard. If you are caught and are found guilty of your crimes, all rights to your spaceship will be stripped by the federal government and they will hold a public auction for the spaceship. That wealthy man has connections within the federal government. He can go through internal procedures to obtain the spaceship, provided that you're sent to the federal prison. Right now, you're under Hermione Alliance's asylum. The army can't do anything to you here. However, interstellar hunters are independent bodies. They only need to be responsible for their own actions. Hence, if Ter attacks, Hermione Alliance's asylum will be pointless. Uncle Bobby said that judging from Ter's excitement, he can tell that he must have charged the wealthy businessman an exorbitant amount as a hiring fee. "I understand now. After hearing those words, Gilding broke into a grin. Larry, Lili, and I are not leaving tomorrow either. We'll depart the day after tomorrow. But Larry wanted to say something, but Gilding cut him off. The last ability evolution has made me stronger again. I wonder if I can win fighting a real rank 6 Gene Body martial arts practitioner this time. Gilding was looking forward to this fight. Chapter 66. Ter had been an interstellar hunter for nearly 20 years now. Amongst other hunters, he was considered a celebrity, the notorious kind. This was because he enjoyed torturing the interstellar pirates that he had captured. Hearing the shrill cries of the tortured victims was one of his life's greatest pleasures. His sadistic mindset led to many entertainment venues blacklisting him. This was because the ladies that he brought out would return with scars and injuries all over their bodies. In serious cases, they were even disfigured. His deranged personality was a result of his experiences when he was young. Since young, he had always been taller and larger size than his peers. Before the age of 10, he had already grown to be 2 meters tall. Therefore, he was made to be a social outcast by his peers all his life. Hence, he began bullying others to get back at the world. When he was 16 years old, his height had already hit 3 meters. He had also awakened his first ability, Rage Attack Level 1. Already several times stronger than ordinary adults, he was now even stronger. He began to sneak into taverns and mingled with interstellar pirates and wanderers. After a long time, he realized that the fellows who bragged and drank all day were not as capable as they made themselves out to be. One time, in an argument, he fought with an interstellar pirate with a 4 million bounty on his head. After crippling the fellow, he left, completely unscathed. Later, the interstellar pirate was captured. He had also obtained a whopping 2 million star credits. The army told him that if he sent the person in himself, he could obtain the full amount of 4 million. Since that day, he became an interstellar hunter. His ability was also constantly enhanced with each battle. The handsome rewards had allowed him to not only purchase the gene enhancer that he needed to make him stronger, but it had also brought him great enjoyment. On top of that, he also realized that torturing his opponent further would bring him unimaginable joy and satisfaction. In nearly 20 years, at least 200 people had been sent to prison by Ter. Among them, the highest bounty was 130 million. Also a rank 6 Gene Body. Ter struggled plenty before he finally won. Whereas the new mission that Ter received this time was so much easier than what he had expected. The target was only a newbie who had just had a fresh bounty put on his head. The bounty was merely millions. Although Ter did not enjoy dealing with wealthy people, but he did not mind putting himself at an inconvenience and lowering his standards if it meant he would earn a ridiculous amount of money. After all, he had undergone all kinds of arduous training for so many years. Although he was ill-tempered, he understood plain truths as such. To make dealings with this big client, he had even specifically asked someone to make him a suit. Although the suit looked incongruous on him, it did a great job of showing his sincerity. The discussion went smoothly. The other party offered a 150 million reward. Moreover, the duo's bounty could all go to him as well. All he needed to do was to send the duo to federal prison. With a heart full of curiosity, when he was at the port, trying to find out about the duo's traces, he took a look at the gray-faced buzzard spaceship that the client mentioned while he was at it. He shook his head with contempt, saying, "This broken spaceship is actually worth so much money." In no time, he received information regarding Gilding Duo's whereabouts. As an interstellar hunter, he need not worry about Hermione Alliance's revenge, but if Gilding hid in Hermione Alliance all the time, there was nothing he could do either. As Hermione Alliance allowed only pharmacologists to enter and leave freely, other people who wished to enter had to go in with a pharmacologist. If they barged in forcefully, Hermione Alliance would order the Federation army to capture the intruder. On top of that, they would use the best lawyer to compile the bad deeds that the intruder had committed throughout his entire life and send them to the federal court. When the time comes, even getting sentenced to 20 years in prison would be considered a light punishment. After recalling certain things that he had done, Ter shuddered. If he encountered such accusations, he estimated that he might even be sentenced to 200 years in prison. He could only keep watch outside Hermione Alliance and patiently wait for Gilding and Liliath to walk into his trap. Gilding, who had received the warning from Larry, made no plans to leave. He really wanted to know how his abilities had progressed now. After fighting with Cooper, Gylding's regenerative ability had evolved into high-speed regeneration. Similarly, his rage attack duration had also extended. Moreover, equipped with Ultimate Arts Level 7, he would most probably not be as easily beaten as before. Of course, the key takeaway was that the opponent this time was much stronger than Cooper, whom he met last time. Although Cooper was also a rank 6 gene body, when he fought Gylding, he had preserved half his strength. Under that circumstance, Gylding was already battered to that extent and have nearly lost his life. Although Gylding had become stronger, this was most certainly not an easy opponent. Neptune seemed pretty worried. He searched up on Ter's information and projected it out in front of Gylding and Liliath. Name, Ter. Sex, male. Age, 35. Occupation, interstellar hunter, 2 stars. Genetic grade, 6th order. Special ability 1, level 2 rage attack. Ability description: attack power, defense power, speed, recovery ability tripled, duration 10 minutes. Side effects: 10 hours into prostration, combat power is halved. Special ability 2, level 2 defense. Ability description: defense power doubled, duration half an hour. Side effects: 3 hours into prostration, combat power is halved. Highest bounty ever captured, 130 million. Accumulated capture amount, 7.783 billion. This fellow seems really strong. If he's at his peak rank 6 gene body condition, his cell index will be at least 3,000 points. With the help of his rage attack level 2, his combat effectiveness will be equivalent to those of 9,000 points cell index. As for his defense that has doubled, this alone is enough for you, Gylding, to have no way of defeating him, right? Liliath could not help but ask. Based on the statistics, it is indeed challenging for me to break his defense. Moreover, his attack prowess is enough to injure me critically. But statistics are only statistics. No one knows that fellow's actual combat ability. It's still too early to judge the outcome right now. Gylding admitted that Ter's statistics were indeed way better than what he had imagined. He also knew that this battle might be much tougher than the one he had with Cooper. But he had never cowered in the face of a formidable enemy, as he remembered the words Dad used to say, "A man may lose but never lowers his head in the face of danger." I found a few combat videos of this fellow from the past. You can take a look and use it as a reference. As Neptune said that, he started projecting the videos one by one. After watching the videos, Liliath seemed pretty furious. This fellow should be the one sent to the federal prison. The things he did were far worse than that of many interstellar pirates. Does the army only persecute people based on their occupation? In the frame, Ter tortured those interstellar pirates so terribly to the point that they were bawling miserably. Liliath could not bear it any longer. Gylding, flatten this fellow's head. If you can't beat him, I'll help you. Chapter 67. Around noon, Ter rushed to Hermione Alliance. In a tavern not far from the opposite of Hermione Alliance's main gate, there happened to be a window looking out at the gate. A couple was enjoying their lunch there. He took large strides and marched into the tavern, making a beeline for the couple. "This seat is mine now." Upon seeing the giant, whose head was nearly touching the ceiling, the couple left hurriedly. "Waiter, give me 3 plates of steaks. Make it medium rare with some blood gravy." He knew that with his size, there was no way he could sit on the chairs here. With his legs crossed, he sat on the ground, staring at the leftover roasted meat on the table that the couple had left behind. He grabbed it with one hand and stuffed it into his mouth. The steaks were served by the waiter in no time at all. He chewed the food with a lot of effort. His gaze never once left Hermione Alliance's main entrance. After sending Larry away, Gylding and Liliath continued searching for a place to have lunch. "I heard that tavern's lamb chop is pretty good. Let's try it out." Liliath pointed at a small tavern in front of Hermione Alliance. "Okay." Gylding was just like Liliath. Both of them were carnivores. Their taste in food did not differ much. They both had physiques that made many green with envy. They would not grow fat no matter how they ate. The moment they pushed open the door to the tavern, Gylding saw the giant-sized Ter sitting beside the window. Ter had only heard the door opening when he gave a casual glance and spotted Gylding. When they saw each other, both of them were stunned. Ter lowered his head to look at his wristwatch. He brought up Gylding and Liliath's bounty before confirming that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. Meanwhile, Liliath, who was standing beside Gylding, pointed at Ter and asked Gylding, "The giant is the guy who's here to kill us." Ter, right? That's right. He's Ter. Naturally, Gyuding, who had just read Ter's profile earlier, could remember him clearly. Whether it was his extremely noticeable body size or that sinister-looking face, it was enough for him to be imprinted in anyone's mind. Ter stood up, then stuffed the last piece of steak into his mouth, staring fixedly at Gyuding while chewing. After swallowing the steak, he gave Gyuding a malevolent smile. "Kid, are you brave enough to take it outside?" As he said that, he charged outside the door. "Hey, you've not paid yet, right?" Gyuding shouted behind him. "I never pay for my meals." Ter glared savagely at the waiter as he said that. "Is that so? You have quite a lot of bad habits," Liliath mocked. "Little brat. Do you have a death wish?" Ter's threatening eyes darted her way. "I happened to purchase 3,000 armor-piercing shells this morning. Are you sure you want to get a taste of a few of them?" A hint of killing intent flashed across Liliath's eyes. The combat armor in her hands had changed into a cannon barrel, which she lifted onto her right shoulder. Her other hand was holding onto a spiral shell that was nearly 20 centimeters in length. This was an armor-piercing shell. Even a mecha constructed with alloy would be pierced instantly, much less a human who was only a rank 6 gene body. A gunner's forcefulness was judged based on both the handling of techniques as well as the shell's grades. There was not much to do with the gunner's gene level. As long as one could bear the recoil from the firearm, then there was nothing for them to worry about. Even if one was only a rank 1 gene body gunner, as long as one employed a powerful enough weapon and managed to hit a high-ranked gene body martial arts practitioner, it would be enough to injure them. Of course, this was only in theory. In reality, gene body level restricted a human's dynamic vision. A rank 1 gene body's vision could not catch the movement of martial arts practitioners with rank 3 gene body or higher. Although Liliath was a rank 2 gene body, with the influence of her pupillary abilities, she was able to catch a rank 6 gene body's movements. However, this was the highest she could go. This time, she had purchased enough armor-piercing shells to cause harm to a rank 8 gene body. This was also in case they encounter powerhouses similar to Cooper again. If Gyuding did not stop her, she would not mind equipping the armor-piercing shells she had just bought to teach the other party a lesson. Seeing that Liliath had pulled out the armor-piercing shells, he was first stunned, then immediately followed this up with fits of laughter. "With your vision, do you think you can catch my movements? Why don't you try and find out?" Liliath inserted the armor-piercing shell, heaved up the cannon barrel, and prepared to fire. However, she was stopped by Gyuding. "Lili, let me test out my current ability first." Only then did Liliath lower it slowly. Nodding at Gyuding, she said, "Teach him a lesson." After summoning his combat armor, Gyuding also activated Rage Attack Level 2. With the Ultimate Arts Level 6 Silent Step, his figure moved like the ghost, appearing behind Ter in the blink of an eye. Ter exclaimed to himself, "That's really fast." The other party's speed had exceeded his. This also implied that his attack prowess would not be too far off either. He immediately activated his defense level 2, intending to turn around to face Gyuding. Nevertheless, he did not expect Gyuding's figure to vanish once again before appearing at Ter's side. He struck at him with a steel fist, but it was as if he was hitting an iron board. With a 100 points cell index, after a 2-fold increase from combat armor, 3-fold increase from rage level 2, and a 5-fold increase from ultimate arts level 6, Gyuding's attack was comparable to a martial arts practitioner with 3,000 points cell index. However, it was still as if he had just struck an iron board. Although Ter, who had taken the hit, was not injured, he was frightened inside. He could clearly feel the energy released from Gyuding's punch earlier, and it was already comparable to the energy of a rank 6 gene body martial arts practitioner. Rank 6 gene bodies interstellar pirates would typically have a bounty of hundreds of millions star credits. A rank 6 gene body at 15 years old? Ter expressed his disbelief. Unless one's parents' gene levels were higher than rank 10, it was impossible for anyone to achieve rank 6 gene body at 15 years old. He speculated that Gyuding might be using certain means to increase his attack prowess. Even though he had failed in the first attack, Gyuding did not give up. No matter how solid a fort is, there would always be a weak point. As long as he could find that flaw, he could tear the other party's defense apart like splitting a bamboo. The encounter with those gigantic monsters earlier in Koila had widened Gilding's combat knowledge. If one could not destroy the opponent with brute force alone, then search for the other party's weakness and target it. His attack poured down like a furious storm and torrential rain. He was not the slightest bit worried that such a battle would burden his body. Ever since his regenerative ability had evolved into high-speed regeneration, he could maintain Rage Attack Level 2 state for 2 hours. On top of that, employing Ultimate Arts Level 6 would only burden his body slightly. Now, his body could also maintain Ultimate Arts Level 7 for half an hour. However, he had no plans to activate Ultimate Arts Level 7 so early. After launching a few attacks to test the waters, judging from the other party's defense, even if he employed Ultimate Arts Level 7, it would not do much harm. Thus, he would rather spend some time figuring out the other party's weaknesses. Under Gilding's strange body techniques and fierce attacking force, Ter could only remain in a defensive stance. Gilding could surpass him in everything. He knew that nothing good would come out of him initiating an attack, thus he chose to defend. His physical strength itself was different from ordinary people. With the help of Defense Level 2, basically anyone with a cell index of fewer than 10,000 points could hardly cause him any harm. Even so, he must admit that although Gilding's attacks caused him no harm, it was still very painful when they struck his body. Having said that, now he could only endure it as he waited for the other party's increased attack prowess to pass. That would be his time to counterattack. This fellow's skin is no ordinary thick. Gilding found it rather thorny too. In less than 2 minutes, he had attacked the fellow at least 200 times, yet the other party seemed to be unscathed. You really need to spend some time learning about the human body. Neptune sighed indistinctly. Then, Gilding noticed that Ter's body analysis chart had emerged in his mind. On the analysis chart, more than 20 flaws and 3 fatal points were depicted. Chapter 68. No matter how strong a fortress was, it would have a weakness. What more when it came to humans? To a certain degree, biological bodies and mechanical bodies bore some resemblance. If something was wrong with one part, it would most likely affect many other areas. In a mechanical body, the loosening of a screw could destroy the entire machine instantly. Similarly, if one function in the human body was not working, it might bring illnesses that could eventually take the life of a person. Mechanical bodies have inevitable weaknesses, as do biological bodies. Naturally, humans, as one of the latter, are not spared of this. In reality, humans are one of the more fragile forms amongst the biological bodies, as these weaknesses are even more fatal if exploited. Perhaps in Gilding's eyes, or even many other martial arts practitioners' eyes, Ter's defense was flawless. However, in Neptune's eyes, it was a completely different story. There were flaws in the other party's every movement. No matter how indistinct, as soon as Neptune caught it, he would be able to pinpoint it. In a battle between different ranks, it is not solely a competition of amplified strength, Neptune explained in Gilding's ears. I can help you once or twice. But if you want to become intrinsically stronger, you need to learn how to judge the other party's weaknesses yourself. Gilding knew what Neptune said was right. Although he was really unwilling for anyone to intervene in his fight, he knew from what had happened earlier that there was no way he could break through Ter's defense. Following the flaws that Neptune had marked out, Gilding began probing and launching testing attacks. His first target was naturally the other party's eyes. This was a weakness for almost every biological body. Unfortunately, Gilding completely overlooked this point earlier. His fists opened and his fingers were exposed. Gilding employed Terminating Finger, a move that he had not employed in a really long time. His fingers moved like a snake on high alert, heading straight for Ter's left eye. Seeing this, Ter immediately raised his right hand to block. Although Gilding's attacks on his body were not enough to injure him, his eyes would never be able to bear a martial arts practitioner's attack that was equivalent to 3,000 points cell index. In a split second, when Ter raised his hand, he exposed a flaw on his right rib. Gilding set his eyes on this flaw, lifting his knee and smashing into it at lightning speed. This impact sent Ter staggering. He could clearly feel that Gilding's attack nearly broke his ribs. He also noticed that Gilding's attacks were starting to become more targeted now. It was fiercer and more lethal. After succeeding in launching one strike, Gilding was in high spirits. Meanwhile, Ter finally realized that the one he was facing this time was no mouth-watering appetizer, but an unrivaled bone that was impossible to gnaw on. Seeing that the other party still had no plans to initiate an attack, Gilding leapt up once more, launching an even more violent attack at Ter. This time, his attacks were all aimed directly at the vital points: temple, ear, throat, precordium, lower back, back of his head, ribs. In such a short time, Ter was overwhelmed. Initially, the majority of Gilding's attacks could be ignored. He just needed to make sure he protected his vital points so that the other party would not hit them. However, now, every one of Gilding's attacks headed straight for his vital points, causing him to be completely exhausted from warding off the strikes. Eventually, he was hit 1 or 2 times in the ear as well as the back of his head. This made him dizzy. As for the other attacks, the pain caused had multiplied when compared to the ordinary blows he received earlier. This wave of attacks lasted for a full 10 minutes or more. Ter was confused and disoriented from Gilding's continuous blows. Due to a lack of strength in his body, he could not even get a hold of Gilding's clothes. After wiping the blood flowing out of his nostrils, Ter knew that Gilding had broken his nose bridge. He began to regret his decision to accept the mission. Their fight happened to be carried out outside Hermione Alliance's main entrance. Basically, this was considered one of the most busy areas on the entire planet, meaning that thousands of people had watched this unfold. There were also a few fellows who had recorded the fight between the two. "Your defense is useless against me now." Gilding stared at the battered as well as an exhausted Ter, feeling slightly moved. If not for Neptune, he might not have been able to break the other party's defense at all. Is that so? Although Ter was slightly injured, it had only bothered and pained him slightly. Gilding's attacks were powerful enough that he was not able to resist them. He had also decided to give it his best shot. "You pushed me to the edge. During the next half an hour, I will show you my true ability." As soon as these words left his lips, the muscles throughout his body started swelling as his body grew larger. With bloodshot eyes, his being began emanating a tyrannical aura. He has activated the Rage Attack mode. Although they say that Rage Attack level 2 can only last 10 minutes, his toughness means that he should be able to last half an hour. After entering the Rage Attack mode, not only will his attack prowess shoot up, his speed will too. Stay vigilant. With his current attack prowess, you'll be done for if you take just one hit, Neptune reminded Gilding. "Half an hour? Let's see who's stronger then." Gilding broke into a grin. He quickly activated Ultimate Arts Level 7, causing his combat prowess to once again double. Ultimate Arts Level 7 Silent Step was more than twice as powerful as its Level 6 counterpart. It even created an afterimage in the sky, making the onlookers exclaim when they saw it. Ter, who had entered the Rage Attack mode, began attacking too. He charged toward Gilding whilst waving his enormous fist, causing the faint sound of the air splitting to rumble outward. Gilding employed his Silent Step, avoiding this punch. Despite that, he was still scraped by the shockwaves of the blow. His sleeves were shredded to pieces. "This is one really potent attack." Gilding sighed to himself. He was being more careful now, avoiding Ter's second and third punches. At the same time, he was also patiently waiting for a chance to launch a fatal attack. Finally, when Ter fired the fourth punch, he left his chest exposed. Gilding employed the Silent Step, searching for an opening to enter. He brushed past Ter's fist, landing a power-accumulating elbow attack on Ter's chest mercilessly. After taking the hit, Ter's heart stopped beating for a few seconds. Even his movements halted for a few seconds. Even so, Gilding did not waste this chance. Immediately after, he followed it up with a heavy knee to the other party's crotch. Without waiting for the other party to collapse, Gilding launched another steel fist at the other party's throat to choke him. After taking 3 consecutive critical hits, Ter collapsed to the ground, with one hand holding onto his crotch and another on his throat. He let out a cry of agony. Gilding, on the other hand, landed steadily. At this moment, Lilioth and the rest appeared in front of Ter at blinding speed, pointing the cannon barrel that had been loaded with the armor-piercing shells straight at Ter's head. She said, "Hand over your intelligent wristwatch." Although Ter was slightly hesitant, it was useless once the other party takes it, as this thing would lock itself after it is removed from the master body. However, if he did not do as Lilioth instructed, he had not the slightest doubt that she would put a bullet in his brain. Thus, he could only take off the intelligent wristwatch. Liliath took the wristwatch and tossed it to Gyuding. "We'll take this as loot." "This is not the end of it, though." "Tell us your employer's name." "I can't tell you that." Ter knew that even though his reputation was bad, if he revealed who had hired him, no one would work with him in the future. "It seems like you think that the employer's life is more important than yours now, do you?" The corner of Liliath's lips curled up as the cannon barrel was jabbed once again against Ter's forehead. "Let me ask you one last time. What's the employer's name?" Ter could see a chilling and cold killing intent in Liliath's eyes. He knew that if he did not reveal a name, he might be drawing his last breath. "His name is Ricky." Chapter 69. Ricky's full name was Ricky Onassis, 33 years old. The new leader of the Onassis family, which was one of the 10 wealthiest families in the entire Skyriver sector. The family had a long history. They started off by making spaceship accessories more than 500 years ago, which has continued until today. These days, the Onassis family did not only run the accessories business, they also ran the spaceship business. Amongst the 10 wealthiest families, their total assets ranked them 4th place. As the new leader of the family, Ricky was also considered a celebrity in the Skyriver sector. With that being said, he had a hobby known to many. He loved collecting all kinds of historical spaceships. However, many had no idea that in order to obtain certain spaceships at low prices, he had done many filthy things in secret. They did everything from framing the spaceship owners, sending them to prison, making purchases through the federal government, hiring interstellar pirates, to even hiring people to pose as ship professionals to deceive the spaceship owners by claiming that their spaceship posed hidden dangers in order to persuade the ship owners to sell them at a lower price. He had used these dirty tactics no less than 10 times, with almost all of them being successful. Nevertheless, this time, Ricky was infuriated after watching the video in which Gyuding beat Ter up, in which the bastard Ter had even revealed his name. There were 2 reasons for his rage. Number 1, his chances of getting his hands on this spaceship were very slim now. Number 2, his reputation had been ruined by the bastard, Ter. It was not like other big families had not worked with Ter before, but anyone who had worked with Ter before would keep their mouths shut. This was due to the fact that Ter's character was too horrible. Like a stink bug, anyone who was staying would have bad luck. Anyone who had anything to do with him would embarrass the entire family. He was not worried that Gyuding and Liliath would take revenge because families like them that had a good foundation of skills would have all nurtured their combat strengths. If Gyuding was so foolish as to barge into his mansion, then there would only be one outcome waiting for him. He would be killed by his men on the spot. However, he did not know that he had indeed been marked by Gyuding and Liliath. In front of Gyuding was a projection of a mansion. That was the first mansion built by the Onassis family on Feniyuan. The mansion was built in recent years to carry out negotiations for the new gene medicine projects whilst also serving to tighten relationships with Feniyuan's authorities. Ricky had been in the pharmaceutical factory over the last few days to discuss a new project. He arrived at Feniyuan's port on the same day and almost at the same time as Gyuding. In fact, he saw Gyuding's grey-faced buzzard and was suddenly attracted to it, which was how things had developed to this state. This fellow brings a lot of people with him every time he goes out. Gyuding counted the number of guards via the projection. It was indeed a lot more than he had imagined. He's the leader of the entire Onassis family. His family won't allow anything to happen to him. Liliath was no stranger to situations like this. 36 guards in total. Among them, 23 of them are rank 6 gene body. 12 of them rank 7 gene body and 1 rank 8 gene body. Every window is guarded as well, so it's impossible to slip inside without being noticed. Neptune commented after he had analyzed the situation. Even if you manage to sneak in, it will also be difficult for you to succeed as Ricky Onassis himself is a rank 6 gene body too. Basically, the bodyguards hired by these wealthy people are all veterans. Some of them are even veterans from the elite army units. They've all gone through professional training, have a great deal of combat experience, and have each taken at least 10 lives. Even though they are also rank 6 gene bodies, each and every one of these fellows is undoubtedly stronger than Ter. Liliath not only had a solid understanding of the bodyguard role, she knew people like Ricky very well too. According to the current circumstances, it's almost impossible for us to barge in. The moment we alarm a bodyguard, we will be surrounded. People like Ricky won't leave any loose ends. He won't turn in the person who attacks his mansion to the Federation Army to collect a monetary reward. He will only kill the person on the spot and leave no trace behind. Even if the federal government learns about it, they will only turn a blind eye. That fellow provoked us first. I will never let him go. I need to teach him a lesson, at least. After saying that, Gilding was silent for a moment, seemingly pondering ways to teach Ricky a lesson whilst also being able to escape after. After a moment, he asked, Neptune, other than Ricky and his bodyguards, is there anyone else in the mansion? His mansion is a new division built in recent years for the convenience of discussing business. No one stays there normally, so it's just that the cleaners that come every week to do the cleaning, Neptune explained. Moreover, the rank gate Gene body is not only one of the bodyguards, he's also the butler. When Ricky is on Fenyuan, the butler handles everything, including cooking meals, making tea, and arranging business meetings. This means that this fellow is extremely cautious as he's worried that someone will poison him. Moreover, he doesn't like to give others the power to handle business matters and prefers doing it all by himself. From the description earlier, Liliath could roughly understand what kind of person Ricky was. Neptune, does our spaceship's cannon happen to have the capability to destroy his mansion whilst also not endangering his neighbors? Gilding seemed to have already devised a plan. I can tweak it. The smallest cannon barrel should be able to do it, Neptune replied. Are you thinking of? Liliath heard what Gilding said and could already guess what Gilding was trying to do. That's right. Since I can't sneak in to teach him a lesson, blowing up his mansion is a good choice too. This mansion of his should cost at least 50 billion star credits or more, right? He wants my spaceship, doesn't he? Then, I'll give him a cannon shell as a gift. Gilding broke into a grin. If that's the case, Feng Yuan's authorities will blacklist you. On top of that, they will inform the federal government to make it a priority to capture you. Liliath figured that Gilding might not know the gravity of the situation. Don't forget, we're interstellar pirates. The federal government has been after us from the start. Isn't that what we wanted, to raise our bounty higher? Besides, didn't you want them to change your wanted picture? Maybe they will renew the wanted order this time and do just that. Gilding was more than clear about the repercussions, but it was precisely the increased bounty that was the main reason behind his decision. That bastard who created the wanted order. As soon as she recalled her pouty picture on the wanted order, Liliath became irritated. Alright. For the picture, I vote yes for this plan. It seems like this journey is getting more and more interesting. Neptune mumbled. Chapter 70. In the Onassis mansion, Ricky was battered, facing the interrogation of the family's higher-ups. The media intentionally reported the Skynet battle video between Gilding and Ter. However, their attention was not on Gilding's battle prowess, but the words Liliath had forced Ter to say in the end. His name is Ricky Onassis. The leader of one of the 10 wealthiest families was dealing with notorious figures like Ter. This was undoubtedly the perfect gossip subject that could serve as fiery media hype. Moreover, it could also give rise to all kinds of other subjects. For example, did members of other families deal with Ter? Had these so-called socialites performed any filthy business deals with other, even more infamous figures? What were they? This matter did not affect the Onassis family alone. Other families had also started keeping a low profile, worried that the media would get hold of certain despicable acts that they had done in the past and expose them. Because of this incident, Ricky's collection had raised doubts from the media. Certain media outlets had even raised their concerns directly, questioning exactly how much of collection had been obtained through such deplorable means. Hundreds of media outlets started ringing up Ricky's and other Onassis family higher-ups communicators ceaselessly. This was also the reason why the other higher-ups in the family were infuriated. Although he carried the title as the leader, in reality, he had only headed the family for less than 2 years. Major decisions were made together with his father and other elders in the family whilst he merely played the role of announcing their collective will. Sir, there's nothing unusual going on with Gilding and Liliath. They've been shopping the entire afternoon. I think they are aware that there are a lot of us here, so they don't plan to get entangled in this matter anymore. The butler walked over and whispered, also, old sir called me on my communicator. He said that your line was constantly busy. It sounds like he's really mad. Other than that, he wants me to tell you that regardless of the means you use, You must solve this matter, otherwise, the next family meeting will be your last day as the head of the family. Hearing this, Ricky picked up his communicator. He was just about to dial his father's number when the butler stopped him. "Sir, it's no use. You will only upset old sir even more." The butler understood every Onassis family member's character very well. "No matter how you explain yourself, old sir will not listen." "What should I do?" Ricky knew that the butler was speaking the truth. "Focus your energy on solving this matter. Stop thinking about other things now." The butler still seemed composed. After all, he had nothing to do with this matter and was totally uninvolved in the affair. "My head is a mess right now. Tell me what I should do, steward." "I know I should have listened to you from the start and not got in bed with people like her, but it has already come to this point. I really need your assistance." Ricky held his head in his hands, seemingly helpless. "If you want to end the dilemma, you will need to solve it by targeting the source of the problem itself." Butler Steward was silent for a moment before giving an answer. "What you're saying is to kill Ter, Gyuding, and the rest. Ter must die." Steward did not even blink as he said this. "But, you can't lay a finger on Gyuding and Liliath." "Gyuding is a pharmacologist, so he has Hermione Alliance backing him up. If you kill him, you'll only make matters worse. Both of them are the federal government's concerns, not ours. Besides, they are only children. There's no need to worry about what they can do. On the other hand, you've worked with Ter a few times now. If this matter is exposed, you may lose not only your position as the head of the family, but also your surname as an Onassis. Only with his death can you rest easy that this matter will not be unearthed. But if we kill Ter now, it'll be too easy for the media to point their finger at us." Ricky's brows were knitted together. He figured that Steward's suggestion was too risky. "What we're doing is not killing Ter but causing his death." The corner of Steward's lips curled up gradually. He just finished fighting a great battle with Gyuding, didn't he? People who have just gone through a harsh battle will show symptoms of internal bleeding and whatnot. Also, I happen to know a medical examiner who performs autopsies. "You don't have to worry about this. Let me handle it." "I believe the headlines tomorrow morning will read Interstellar Hunter Ter dies of internal bleeding after losing a fight." "Even so, certain media outlets will doubt us, right?" "Ter would have injected himself with the cell repair agent by now, so the chances of him suffering internal bleeding are slim. Besides, even ordinary civilian news wristwatches will display the abnormalities of the body after detecting it, reminding the owner to seek medical help as soon as possible." Ricky figured that there were too many holes in this plan. It may be possible that his wristwatch was damaged in the fight with Gyuding, causing it to malfunction. Steward was still smiling. "If the internal bleeding is serious enough, the cell repair agent may not be able to repair it after just one use. Besides, he's a fellow who enjoys eating and drinking in unreasonable amounts, so his chances of suffering internal bleeding are much higher than ordinary people." "Don't worry. I will handle this flawlessly. When the time comes, it doesn't matter how the media puts it, as long as they don't have the evidence, we only need to stand firm and deny it vehemently." Steward wore an indifferent look. Clearly, this was not his first time doing this now. When night fell, Liliath and Gyuding finally completed a whole day of shopping at the market. "I want to eat that tavern's lamb chop again." "What do you think?" Liliath placed the leather bag that she had just bought into her inventory. She lifted her head and asked Gyuding. "My sentiments exactly." Gyuding's taste was quite similar to Liliath. He figured that the lamb chop this afternoon was indeed tasty. "I think we need to find a chef as soon as possible. I have a request, which is that the lamb chop needs to be of this standard, at least." Liliath nodded and agreed. "I agree." "I object." "Are both of you bullying me, a member who has no sense of taste?" Neptune's voice rang in their ears. However, his objection was immediately ignored. When the two of them arrived at the tavern, the place was almost full, but the waiter was extremely enthusiastic toward Gyuding and Liliath when he saw them, which was expected as the duo helped him to retrieve the payment for the meal that Ter owed him. Moreover, they had also made Ter compensate for the damaged tables and chairs in the tavern. Under the waiter's guidance, the duo found their seats in no time. They had just ordered their lamb chops when Neptune's voice rang out. "Ter died at the side of the road after eating his dinner just now. The medical examiner performed the autopsy on the spot and determined that he died due to internal bleeding from his previous injuries. Someone damaged his wristwatch, which was why his body condition could not be accurately monitored. "That's really fast of Ricky." Liliath knew what had happened without even pausing. To be able to kill her so easily, it should be the butler's doing, right? To think, a rank 8 gene body this strong. Gilding frowned slightly. "They won't do anything to the two of you." Neptune already knew what had happened in the mansion. In their own words, "Children like the two of you won't cause any problems." "I hope that's what they will still think tomorrow." Gilding smiled. He had spotted the waiter bringing the lamb chop over. Chapter 71, made a big blunder. Early in the morning, it was clear as usual in the skies of Feniyuan. In truth, this planet had clear skies all around for the vast majority of the year. Having had breakfast, Larry was already waiting by the main entrance of the Hermian Alliance. "Don't cause so much trouble. If you have any questions about refining medicine, feel free to dial my number," Modican yelled as he waved at Gilding. "Got it." Gilding waved back before stepping into the car. Larry whistled as he drove the two of them off. He was in a great mood. Over the past 2 days, his older brother had completely recovered, and his gene level had even been upgraded a grade. "Mr. Gilding, before you all leave, my brother wants to meet you guys and show his gratitude in person." After falling silent for a moment, Gilding gave an odd response. "Larry, apologies, but we can't meet your brother." "Truthfully, you shouldn't tell anyone that you know us, or you'd be causing yourself a lot of trouble. I know you guys are interstellar pirates." "That doesn't matter. On Feniyuan, there are many interstellar pirates." Larry thought Gilding was talking about a problem surrounding his career. "I wasn't referring to this. When we reach the port later, you'll understand. If anyone asks you about us in the future, you should just tell them that the two of us only took a ride in your car twice and were regular passengers," Gilding said very seriously. "All right then." Although he could not quite understand exactly what Gilding meant and also felt that it was somewhat regrettable, Larry did not ask too much. He was an intelligent person and knew when and when not to dig deeper. After 3 hours, Larry finally brought the two of them to the port. Watching the two of them get out of the car and walk toward the humongous spaceship, Larry did not immediately leave and instead watched them from afar. Upon boarding the spaceship, Neptune immediately took over the spaceship's system. The giant gray-faced buzzard model very quickly left the ground, gradually climbing into the sky. Just as Larry was getting ready to leave, he suddenly noticed a gun barrel extend from the gray-faced buzzard model. An uneasy thought flashed through his mind at once. "What's this? They're attacking?" Neptune aimed the barrel at Onassis's mansion and adjusted the strength of the gunfire according to the mansion's size in order to avoid affecting other houses. To him, this was nothing difficult. It seemed that 2 seconds had not passed before he completed the adjustments. Right then, the staff members at the port also noticed the abnormal behavior of the gray-faced buzzard model and sent Gilding a warning. "Please retract your weapon immediately, or your spaceship will be delivered a devastating blow." At the same time, the port's 70-something armor-piercing cannons took aim at Gilding's gray-faced buzzard model. If there was just the slightest bit of suspicious movement, they would attack at once. These 70-something armor-piercing cannons were the port's ultimate weapons. Even the best Golden Eagle-grade warship could not withstand these armor-piercing cannons' first round of bombardment. This was also the main reason why nobody dared to take action at the port, as this type of behavior was the equivalent of courting death. However, it was unfortunate that they were facing Neptune. Neptune completely ignored these 72 armor-piercing cannons and rampantly attacked as he controlled the gray-faced buzzard model. As the gray-faced buzzard model attacked, the armor-piercing cannons that were supposed to respond in kind unexpectedly did not make a sound. "What is this?" Many who saw this were stunned. Those 72 armor-piercing cannons were clearly aimed at Gilding's gray-faced buzzard model, yet for some unknown reason, they did not fire. At the same time, on Feniyuan, the Onassis mansion that was situated beside a mountain turned into a wasteland amid the sounds of heavy gunfire. This scene also stunned many of the media reporters waiting outside the Onassis mansion. Very quickly, one reporter reacted and immediately captured a picture before uploading it to Skynet. At the port, the main control room was in shambles. The systems of the 72 armor-piercing cannons had all been frozen at the same time, and not a single cannon could be used. This was the reason the gray-faced buzzard model had not been hit by the armor-piercing cannons after it launched the attack earlier. Retracting the gun barrel, Neptune piloted the gray-faced buzzard model into a speedy ascension, only taking a few seconds before completely vanishing from Fenn-Yuan's atmosphere. Breaking news below: Interstellar Pirate Gylding and Interstellar Pirate Lilioth destroyed the Onassis mansion located on Fenn-Yuan at 11:27 this morning. According to information we received earlier, we came to know that Ricky Onassis wanted to use some underhanded tactics to purchase Gylding's first-generation gray-faced Buzz model spaceship at a low price, but from the video below, we can see that not only did he not manage to get this young interstellar pirate's spaceship, he was also gifted a round of ammunition in return. The news then showed the video of the grey-faced buzzard blasting the Onassis mansion. The video was the most complete picture the media could find on Skynet, and was also taken from a very good angle. The video clearly recorded the entire process of the grey-faced buzzard model extending the gun barrel, getting warned by the port's staff members, and then bombarding the Onassis mansion, as well as the port's 72 armor-piercing cannons' lack of reaction. As everybody can see from the video, the port's armor-piercing cannons did not fire a single shot from start to finish. Before our program aired, we contacted the staff members at the port and received the reply that the system suddenly froze, and all 72 armor-piercing cannons malfunctioned. In that case, we have to guess, were the armor-piercing cannons sabotaged? If Gylding and Lilioth did not know the armor-piercing cannons would malfunction, how would they have dared to launch an attack while staring down the barrel of the armor-piercing cannons? Fenn-Yuan's Starport Authority has also just officially passed Gylding and Lilioth's letters of indictment to the federal government and requested a large increase in the duo's bounties. Moreover, Fenn-Yuan's government has officially listed the duo in their eternal blacklist, never allowing them to enter Fenn-Yuan ever again. At the same time, the Onassis family is recruiting interstellar hunters to pursue Gylding and Lilioth and have even attached a private bounty. Gylding's is 300 million star credits, and Lilioth's is 200 million star credits, regardless of dead or alive. It seems that these two new folks have made a big blunder this time around. It's unknown in which direction this matter will progress, but as a member of the media, I can only wish you two youngsters good luck, and to at least bring us some good news. Turning off the news projection, Lilioth turned her head to look at Gylding. Where's our next stop? Under these circumstances, I'm afraid we can't dwell in Skyriver sector anymore. This video has probably spread the sector already. Gylding shrugged. Let's go to Kunstlik then. There are quite a few large-scale repair shops there, and our spaceship does indeed need some repairs. Black Iron sector's Kunstlik. That's a little far. Lilioth had heard of this planet before. It's the largest manufacturing planet in the Dragonsaur Cosmic Nation. It's worth the trip, and we can test our luck too and see if we can find our own mechanic. Gylding was a little excited about this new voyage. Chapter 72, Gylding's Dark Cuisine. Hey, Gylding, aside from egg fried rice, can't you make anything else? Lilioth complained with some reluctance as she gazed at the big bowl of egg-fried rice in front of her. This grey-faced buzzard model came with a gravity system installed and even had a cultivation room where the strength of gravity could be individually adjusted. The maximum it could be adjusted to was 10 times the normal gravitational force. Why is it not tasty? Gylding asked through a mouthful of fried rice, cheeks bulging. Tasty is tasty, but we've been eating egg-fried rice 3 days in a row. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is already the 8th time. Lilioth could not avoid protesting anymore. Although she acknowledged that Gylding's egg-fried rice was masterful, eating it 3 days in a row did indeed make it a little unbearable. Oh, but I don't know how to make anything else. Gylding immediately gave an unarguable reason. Rose Tavern's Uncle Cook said I don't have any culinary talent at all. Even this simple egg-fried rice took me 6 months to learn. I feel you do very well. Uncle Cook must have only said that because he was afraid you'd steal his job. To teach you egg-fried rice for 6 months, he must have done that on purpose. Judging from Gylding's egg-fried rice, Lilioth felt that he probably had plenty of culinary talent. But the Rose aunties all said this too and made me do everything but cook. Gylding harbored some doubt regarding Lilioth's views. Let Neptune search for a few simple recipes for you. You can try making something first. I'll be the guide. Lilioth pushed the egg-fried rice in front of her aside, full of anticipation. Gylding finished his meal in 2 or 3 bites, also eager to try it out as Uncle Cook had not allowed him to touch anything in the kitchen after he had learned egg fried rice. "I found something simple for you, and there are ingredients in the refrigerator too." Although Neptune could not eat, watching humans busy in the kitchen was a delight. "This dish is very traditional. It's called chili pepper shredded meat." Gylding looked at the recipe and the video, then nodded confidently. "Judging by the name, it'll only be tasty if it's spicy enough. I remember Lilioth bought some Hellfire Dragon peppers before." After Gylding rummaged around in the refrigerator, he finally found a few purple peppers as large as a small thumb. "They're so small. I'll put a few more in." Gylding grabbed a handful of Hellfire Dragon peppers, then started choosing the meat. "The recipe says I need lean meat. Gorilla flesh is probably the best choice, but the fridge only has brute force minotaur flesh." Having chosen the two main ingredients, Gylding quickly prepared the accompanying ingredients too. Around 20 minutes later, Gylding stared at the large chunk of meat in the pot. The color did not seem to have changed much. Thus, he could not resist asking Neptune, "Do you think it's cooked?" "Probably not." According to data records, brute force minotaur flesh will only be done after being broiled at 1300 degrees for more than 5 minutes. It's an ingredient that requires special handling. Also, this isn't shredded meat, is it? "This piece of meat has more volume than your brain." Neptune could not resist protesting. "There's no helping it. The knives in the kitchen couldn't slice through this chunk of meat." Gylding looked at the already dull edges of the 3 kitchen knives, feeling like crying a little inside. "How about we just serve it like this in the pot then? We can just change the name of the dish. Change it to chili pepper meat then." Even Neptune did not know whether this sentence was said as a taunt or a suggestion. "I don't think that's half bad." Gylding felt that Neptune's suggestion was acceptable. "Up to you. It's not for me to eat anyway." Neptune could vaguely imagine what Lilioth's reaction would be later on. Lifting the pot, Gylding then served the dish. Upon seeing the huge chunk of meat, Lilioth could not help asking, "What dish is this?" "Chili pepper meat." Gylding felt that this name was not too awkward sounding either. Lilioth picked up her knife somewhat skeptically, but found that she could not cut through the meat even she tried for half a day. "What knife did you use to slice this earlier?" "I didn't slice it. The kitchen's 3 kitchen knives have all been bent." Gylding told Lilioth with the utmost honesty. "All right then." Lilioth put down her small knife. She knew this meat was definitely inedible, but to show her support for Gylding, she pierced 2 little peppers onto her fork and shoved them into her mouth. The moment the peppers entered her mouth, she spat them back out, her entire person having jumped onto the table. "Water, give me water." Gylding felt a little strange. He knew Lilioth liked spiciness, so he had put in quite a few peppers. However, he never expected a reaction like this. After pouring 17 cups of cold water for Lilioth, she finally calmed down. However, her voice was really hoarse. Staring at her swollen lips, Gylding could not understand what she was saying at all. She asked what peppers you used. Neptune took up the task of translating. He could deduct what Lilioth was saying based on the movements of her mouth. "Hellfire Dragon peppers," Gylding answered, a little puzzled. Upon hearing this name, Lilioth's response became more fired up. She gestured as she ranted. She said, the Hellfire Dragon peppers she bought weren't for eating, they were to process her bullets. Hellfire Dragon peppers have a special effect that can largely lower the platelet aggregation rate, lowering the recovery rate of the wounds caused by these bullets, alongside plenty of pain, Neptune explained. "But don't some people use this to cook too?" Gylding could not quite understand. "Actually, I just looked up information on Hellfire Dragon peppers. When others cook with it, they would only put a maximum of 1, and they also only wash it with oil for a moment before fishing out the pepper. Then, they use that chili pepper oil to cook." "However, you grabbed a handful earlier." "That was at least 30, probably." Neptune did not wait for Lilioth to explain and reported the results of his own search to Gylding. "Then I'll try other dishes. I promise I won't put peppers in this time." Having been persuaded by Lilioth, Gylding was determined to make a new attempt. However, of the following dishes, not a single dish looked appetizing. Every dish that Gylding handled all completely became dark cuisine 1. Just looking at them made it hard for her to gulp. Lilioth also finally understood why the Rose Tavern people had said Gylding had no culinary talent at all. and she subsequently gave up completely. Even Gilding could not quite look at some of his final products. After placing his seventh dish down on the dining table, Gilding looked at the gruesome plate of sweet and sour pork ribs. "I think we should find a chef," Lilith replied with some gestures, which Neptune translated. "She said she wants to tell you a secret. Actually, she cooks worse than you." "All the more reason for us to find a chef then." Gilding's resolve was only further strengthened. "No need to be anxious. Fix the spaceship first. There are still about 4 hours before we arrive on Kunstlik." Neptune's voice sounded in the duo's ears. "Just in time for dinner." Gilding winked at Lilith. 1. Slang for cooking so bad, it's inedible. Chapter 73. First time on Kunstlik. Kunstlik had the longest history of any planet in the Dragonsaur Cosmic Nation. This planet had already been in existence for over 20 billion years. Early in the Middle Ages, this planet already possessed advanced technology and was the core of the entire universe at one point. The speed of the mechanical civilization advancement was so fast, it caused a conflict between artificial intelligence and humankind, which ended up resulting in the entire civilization being annihilated in war. Kunstlik's new rise happened over 3,000 years ago. This abandoned planet had been reopened by the federal government, and a large number of the mechanical civilization's remains were dug out, then rebuilt. Over 3,000 years, this planet had always held the title of being the largest manufacturing planet in the Dragonsaur Cosmic Nation. Due to the flourishing manufacturing business, there were plenty of large-scale space docks as well as space dock repair shops. After parking their spaceship at the port, Gilding and Lilith walked out of the spaceship and took in the truly spectacular sights. A large majority of the spaceships at the port were even larger than Gilding's gray-faced buzzard model. Various white Gyrfalcon grade and Silverhawk grade spaceships were parked at the port, blocking the other small-sized ships. What made Gilding most excited was that he even spotted a Golden Eagle model in the distance, which stood more than 70 times bigger than the gray-faced buzzard. It attracted countless gazes from the passers-by at the port. "Who knows what sort of important figure is on this planet?" Lilith muttered in a low voice. "Someone who's able to buy a Golden Eagle model is definitely not some commoner." "What an imposing spaceship." Gilding's eyes shone as he stared. "Someday, I'll get my hands on one." "Do you know the price of a Golden Eagle?" Lilith attacked mercilessly. "Even if it was some damaged product that had already changed hands many times, the lowest price you can get it on the black market is 800 million universe credits." "Listen carefully, it's not star credits, it's universe credits." "Can't you just say it's 800 billion star credits?" Gilding's mouth split into a smile. In the Dragonsaur Cosmic Nation, the exchange rate of star credits to universe credits was 1,000 to 1. This exchange rate would occasionally fluctuate, but not by too much. Star credits are just the circulated currency in the internal portion of the Cosmic Nation. There are different types of star credits in different Cosmic Nations, and they all have different exchange rate with universe credits. For this kind of spaceship, people would only be willing to sell them for universe credits, not star credits, Lilith explained with utmost seriousness. Between different Cosmic Nations, star credits would not be accepted. If they wanted to use it, they would either have to exchange it for universe credits, or exchange it for universe credits and then exchange it once again for the Cosmic Nation's star credits. After exiting the port, under Neptune's guidance, Gilding and Lilith found a restaurant that had a great reputation. Over these 3 days, it was not just Lilith, even Gilding had gotten sick of eating egg fried rice. Having found a good restaurant, the two of them quickly placed their orders. However, they did not notice one of the customers in the restaurant checking 2 images on his wristwatch. After noticing the duo, Neptune had found 4 or 5 repair shops for Gilding that had suitable prices and good reputations. Thus, Gilding was ready to visit them together with Lilith starting the next morning. They hoped to fix their spaceship and leave quickly. After all, after the two of them blasted the Onassis mansion, not only did the Onassis family put a high bounty on them, even the federal government had greatly increased the bounty on their heads. Gilding's original 8 million star credits bounty had been increased to 80 million. And Lilith's 6 million figure had been up to 60 million star credits. The duo's net worth had decupled overnight. What was even more eye-catching was the bounty the Onassis family had placed. In the 3 days that there had been no news regarding Gyuding, the Onassis family had further increased the private bounty on them, so Gyuding was now worth 600 million, while Liliath was worth 400 million. In reality, such a high bounty did not match Gyuding and Liliath's combat prowess at all. Gyuding's combat effectiveness was not much different from an interstellar pirate worth around 200 million star credits, which was only achieved with Neptune's help. As for Liliath, even with an armor-piercing projectile, she could only deal with a rank 6 gene body and had an attack power worth about 100 million star credits bounty at most. For the Onassis family to have set such a high reward, it was clear what their goal was. They wanted the two of them dead. As the two of them enjoyed a lavish dinner, a bespectacled man outside the restaurant said, "I am Kunstlik Division's Bundy. I've spotted Gyuding and Liliath." A moment later, a deep male voice came from the communicator. "Send the duo's pictures to all the bosses of Kunstlik's spaceship production plants and repair companies, so they'll reject all requests from the two of them." Understood. Cutting off the communicator, Bundy called another number. The next morning, Gyuding and Liliath brought the blueprint of the spaceship to the first repair shop. The repair shop's boss was an unshaven, bald man. Upon seeing the two of them, his expression became a little unnatural. "Mr. Collier, we found your repair shop on Skynet. It has great reviews. We're hoping you can help us repair our spaceship." Gyuding observed the other party's change in expression but did not think much of it. "Apologies, our workload for this month is already full. The earliest we can accept new orders is the 1st of next month." "Can you wait that long?" The bald Collier immediately turned down their business. "But we saw your repair shop still accept orders last night." Gyuding was confused. "Yinter, that guy, must have forgotten to update the orders on the website again. I'm really sorry you came all the way here. You two had best find other repair shops and ask around." "Will do, thanks." Thus, Gyuding and Liliath had to go to the second repair shop. "Why do I feel that the bald uncle just now was acting a little weird? It was like he wasn't very receptive to us from the start." Liliath also noticed this oddity. Gyuding nodded. "I feel the same way. He might have seen the video of the two of us on Skynet." "That's possible." Liliath recalled how she and Gyuding had been depicted by the media as two troublemakers who would cross any line to get what they wanted, making anyone who saw the video subconsciously distance themselves from the two of them. The duo quickly arrived at the second repair shop. The boss was a pale, lanky youngster. When he saw the two of them, he visibly furrowed his eyebrows. This slight movement was caught by Gyuding and Liliath. "Hello, Mr. Adam. We saw the reviews of your repair shop on Skynet weren't bad, and you're still accepting orders, so we came first thing today." Gyuding immediately mentioned the other party's order status online to prevent the previous issue from reoccurring. "Let me see your spaceship blueprint then." Adam nodded. Neptune immediately projected the structural diagram of the spaceship in front of the three of them as well as the current damage analysis report. Adam skimmed it, then forced a smile. "A very beautiful spaceship, and it has great collection value. However, I can't repair it for you here." "Why?" Gyuding could not help asking. "Yours is a first-generation gray-faced buzzard model. It has more than 100 years of history. This spaceship has been out of production for over 90 years too, so we have no way of getting the corresponding parts." "I'm really sorry, but there's nothing I can do," Adam explained. "Can't you use other spare parts to replace them?" Gyuding pressed him. "A lot of the parts are custom-sized and unique. They are very rarely replaceable. Even if we go back a step and assume we can find replacement parts, the spaceship's performance will be affected. I don't allow mediocrity here, and I definitely won't accept any business that might negatively affect my reputation." Adam then politely asked them to leave. "I suggest you two seek out other repair shops." "All right then. Thank you for your explanation." Gyuding nodded and left with Liliath. "That bastard was obviously afraid of us, and he sounded impatient." Liliath once again observed the abnormal behavior. "Let's go to 2 more places and see." Gyuding's expression was blank, but he did not express any personal opinion. Chapter 74, Continuously Getting Rejected. After going to 4 repair shops, Gyuding kept receiving the same answer. "There's no way to repair it." The explanations given for why they could not repair it were all different though. Aside from the 2 previous reasons provided, they were also rejected as the boss was not around, the business was suspended. The model was too old, and the workers have no repair experience. What exactly is going on? Could these people all have seen the media's report already? Gilding could not fully understand. I think someone has had a hand in this. I'll check around. You wait a while. Neptune had also noticed the abnormality of the situation. Therefore, he started infiltrating these 4 repair shop bosses' intelligent wristwatches. In just a moment, he found the answer. I found it. A number has called all these repair shops bosses. As Neptune said this, he played the call's recording. Mr. Collier, I'm the Onassis Space Docks Bundy. I'm very sorry to have disturbed you during working hours. The Onassis family has a small issue they hope you can help out with. I'll send you a couple of pictures later. If you see the people in pictures asking you to repair their ship, or if they have any other request, please reject them. The Onassis family will remember your help in this matter. Mr. Adam, I am Onassis Space Docks Bundy. Gilding heard the 4 conversations in succession. It was all that bastard Bundy's mischief. Neptune, I want all the information on this Bundy. Gilding clenched his fist. He had dared to blow up the Onassis family's residence, so he definitely would not mind teaching this Bundy a lesson. Bundy, 28 years old, an Onassis family branch member. He is the assistant of the current head of Onassis Division's space dock. This bastard doesn't seem to be anything special. After seeing Bundy's information, Gilding made this evaluation. How did he know we arrived on Kunstlook? Gilding was more curious about this matter. They had lost loads of interstellar hunters throughout their journey, yet they were found by this bastard. He noticed by chance. As he said this, Neptune brought up the video of the duo eating at the restaurant on the first night. The guy called Bundy was seated 2 tables away from Gilding and Liliath. The video even showed the guy lowering his head to glance at his intelligent wristwatch after spotting the 2 of them, then hastily settling his bill and leaving. After heading to a corner near the doorway and confirming that he had not been noticed by Gilding and Liliath, he dialed a number. Neptune could even play the contents of that conversation. Can you find how that deep-voiced bastard is related to the Onassis family? Gilding wanted to dig up everything on this person in one go. I can't find it. This line's serial number is the public number of their family, so anyone could have answered it. Moreover, I've compared this person's voice to 30 years of the Onassis family's representatives in the media, and not a single one matches this. What's the head of the space dock like? Gilding asked next. Rob Onassis. 51 years old this year, rank 7 gene body. A branch member of the Onassis family. He has an odd temper. He distanced himself from the family's main branch the year he turned 20 and is single to this day. He has a hot temper and is an alcoholic. What are you looking up so much information for? Let's go straight back to the port, blow it up, then find another planet to repair the spaceship. Liliath gave an extremely violent suggestion. This bastard probably still doesn't know about our situation. It seems he doesn't quite get along with the main family branch. Gilding shook his head. This is a grudge we have with Bundy. There's no need to involve others. I don't recommend you to repeat what happened on Phenelan on this planet. Neptune also offered his very persuasive opinion. You two probably saw that Golden Eagle model parked at the port yesterday too. That ship's owner is a rank 10 gene body powerhouse. If you two launch any attacks on this planet, this grey-faced buzzard model will be snapped in half by that bastard in an instant. The probability of you guys perishing stands at 100%. Hearing Neptune's words, Gilding and Liliath both fell silent. They were extremely aware of what a rank 10 gene body was capable of. A cosmic nation was composed of numerous cosmoses. The lord of a cosmic nation would appoint a realm lord for each of the cosmoses comprising it, whilst each realm lord held jurisdiction over the cosmos they were in. One of the conditions to be chosen as realm lord was that they had to have a rank 10 gene body. Hence, a rank 10 gene body powerhouse was on par with a realm lord level powerhouse and definitely had the top combat effectiveness in the cosmos. Provoking a powerhouse of this caliber was tantamount to death. Although it was part of Gilding's character to be unafraid of anything, he was not foolish. Voluntarily provoking a powerhouse like this was just spell a bad time for himself. There are a lot of powerhouses on this planet, so it's best for you two to remain inconspicuous. Neptune added. Got it. We'll just give that Bundy a little lesson before we leave, and that'll be enough. Gilding did not plan to delve too deeply into this matter anymore. That Bundy was just a pawn, so there was no need to waste too much time on him. Even now, he was more concerned with the maintenance of the spaceship. But all the service shops have been bought by that bastard and are refusing to repair our spaceship. Do we really have to change course and head to the next stop? I don't think you necessarily need a repair shop to complete this repair job. You can take this chance to recruit a mechanic. All future ship repair jobs can be given to the mechanic, which can save you quite a bit of money, Neptune suggested. Heeding Neptune's suggestion, Gilding and Liliath remained at Kunstlik for another day. During that time, Gilding and Liliath paid a visit to 6 independent mechanics and were rejected each and every time. These independent mechanics had also been bought by Bundy. They would not help Gilding repair his ship, much less entertain the idea of being recruited as an interstellar pirate. After we eat dinner, let's pay a visit to Bundy's house, then leave this planet straight after. What do you think? Gilding did not plan to stay any longer. On the other hand, Liliath did not hear what he said as she squatted in front of a street vendor, her hand fidgeting with a few crystal nuclei. Gilding, don't leave just yet. On the stall Liliath was looking at was a block of metal the size of a fist. By that and the crystal nuclei in Liliath's hand. You must move quickly. It'll be too late if anyone else recognizes the items. Neptune's voice suddenly ordered him. It seemed that he had noticed something good. Gilding walked over to the vendor, reached a hand out, and picked up the metal ball. The vendor did not stop him. Weighing it in his hand, he did not feel that there was anything special about it. But since Neptune had asked him to do this, he understood that the latter probably had his own reasons. Boss, I want this metal ball and the crystal nuclei in the young lady's hand. Chapter 75, Battle Number 1. Chapter 75, Battle Number 1. Spending 1,300 star credits, Gilding purchased the metal ball that Neptune had talked about as well as the gemstone-like crystals in Liliath's hand. However, only after keeping them in the storage space and leaving the market did Gilding ask Neptune, Neptune, what exactly is that metal ball? If I'm not mistaken, it should be a manufacturing robot from the Middle Ages. Neptune voiced out his speculations. A manufacturing robot? Liliath was stunned when she heard what it was. Are you referring to those advanced intelligent robots found in large manufacturing factories? The ones that are worth around hundreds of millions of universe credits? Yes. The one you have right now is better than those factory robots, Neptune added. Right now, the robots used by manufacturing companies are merely simplified versions of your robot. They aren't capable of even 1/10 of what your guy right here can do. In the Middle Ages, manufacturing robots evolved into true life forms and came to have emotions of their own. So this guy should be able to help us fix our spaceship, right? The first thing that Gilding thought of was repairing the spaceship. But, it has been tens of billions of years since the Middle Ages. Will the robot still work? Liliath was not too optimistic about it. The crystals that I asked you to buy earlier are energy crystals specifically used by their race. However, the ones that you bought have already turned into pieces. I'm not sure if they'll be able to activate him, Neptune explained. Return to the spaceship first. After deploying the shield, try and see if you can activate him. Following Neptune's suggestion, both of them returned to the spaceship without wasting any time. Then, after deploying the shield, Gilding retrieved the metal ball and several crystals of different sizes. Neptune, there are no card slots to insert the crystals, Gilding said as he rotated the ball in his hand, unsure of how to start. Attach the crystals to the metal ball and press hard against them. Although it's still hibernating in its current state, once he senses the energy crystals, he'll absorb them instinctively, Neptune explained. Gilding followed Neptune's instructions and attached the energy crystals to the robot. Roughly 10 seconds later, the metal ball's surface began to liquefy. Then, the energy crystals slowly began to be absorbed by the metal ball. Recognizing that the method worked, Gilding continued attaching the rest of the energy crystals one by one. After all the energy crystals had been completely absorbed, Gilding and Liliath waited patiently on one side. 3 whole minutes went by and no changes were found in the metal ball. Gilding furrowed his brows as he said, looks like it didn't work. We don't know if it's not activating because many ages have passed or because there isn't enough energy. Keep waiting. According to the information that I have, This type of robot goes through an extremely complicated process during self-activation. They've evolved to the extent where their thoughts aren't completely determined by their program. A truly advanced and intelligent robot. They also have their own independent personalities and memories. Many aspects are involved in its reactivation process. Hence, it takes time. Neptune did not seem like he was going to give up. Although Neptune could not find out the current condition of the robot's internal body, he had a slight hunch that it would become a member of Gylding's pirate team. Gylding and Liliath waited for half an hour. Nevertheless, nothing happened to the metal ball. Hence, both of them gave up. As a result, they followed Neptune's suggestion and deactivated the spaceship's shield. Gylding did not keep the metal ball in his inventory. Instead, the metal ball was kept in the spaceship's cabin before he and Liliath started to go about their own business. When the spaceship's shield was deactivated, a ray of sunlight shone through the window and landed on the metal ball in the cabin. The metal ball suddenly began to shake a little, and it rolled off toward the window. It was fully exposed to the sunlight. About more than 10 minutes later, the metal ball started to soften gradually, transforming into a half-meter-tall humanoid. The entire process had been witnessed by Neptune, but he did not inform Gylding and Liliath immediately. From what he understood, the war in the Middle Ages that wiped out the entire mechanical civilization had caused mechanical life forms to harbor bad impressions toward humans. They felt that they were life forms that had emotions and were worthy of respect. On the other hand, humans felt that no matter how much the mechanical life forms evolved, they would always be man-made objects that had been put together with piles of metal scrap. They only served their purpose as tools. Neptune wanted to test it out for himself first and find out if the mechanical life form had any prejudices against humans. "Hey, are you awake?" Neptune connected to the other party's communicating system directly. "You're a superintelligence?" The other party was able to distinguish Neptune's identity immediately. "Yes, my name is Neptune." Neptune introduced himself. "How do you know my identity?" "The internal system in our bodies is unbreakable." "That's because our primary program was designed by a superintelligence. Only superintelligences themselves can break into our body's internal systems," the mechanical life form explained. "I'm Battle Number 1, it's nice to meet you." "Battle Number 1? You were programmed for weapon manufacturing by default?" Neptune could not help but ask. Battle series robots are not that simple. Weapon manufacturing is only a side task of mine. My main task is manufacturing large-scale battle weaponry, Battle Number 1 explained. "Although I have no idea for how many years I was in hibernation for, I'm guessing that you know very well about the war in which the mechanical civilization was wiped out." Yes, over 10 billion years have passed since then." Neptune was rather reluctant to talk about such a heavy topic. "That year, my mates and I manufactured 7 ultimate weapons that could easily wipe out an entire star sector. By the time we realized that we had made a mistake, it was already too late. Innumerable amounts of humans died at our hands." It infuriated the true human powerhouses, causing them to take action and end the war. Just like that, there and then, the mechanical civilization was wiped out. "I asked my mates to extract the energy crystals in my body and bury me on this planet. I never expected that after so many years, someone would dig me out." "Do you believe in fate?" Neptune asked unexpectedly. "I think that perhaps it's fate that you've been dug out." Battle Number 1 fell silent. He stretched his hands outward, reaching for the inner layer of the cabin walls. After a long pause, he said, "I have a special ability. The moment my hands touch a mechanical object, the entire history of it will be known to me. This includes the entire process of how it was made, how many people used it, what those people did to it. I saw what the children did." "You want me to join you?" Gylding and Liliath are both very naive children. They would be overjoyed to have you around. Neptune knew that there was no use in talking much. Mechanical life forms like Battle Number 1 had been through far too much and was able to tell if he was lying or not. "Bring me to them then." Battle Number 1 lowered his head and suggested after a brief pause. Chapter 76, New Member, Robert. When the half-a-meter-tall humanoid robot appeared in front of Gylding and Liliath, both of them clearly appeared to be stunned. "His name is Battle Number 1. This is his current state ever since the metal ball was activated," Gylding explained to the duo. "I think he's the perfect candidate to be our mechanic." "Hello, my name is Gylding." "She's Liliath. Welcome to our team." Gilding broke into a grin. "Aren't you going to conduct an evaluation?" Battle number 1 was not expecting Gilding to make the decision immediately. "That's not necessary. If Neptune thinks you're fit for the job, there shouldn't be a problem." Gilding turned his head to look at Lilioth. "Lili, what do you think?" "You decide, you're the captain." Lilioth did not raise any objections. For one, she trusted Neptune's decision. Second of all, she figured that such advanced-level mechanical life forms from the Middle Ages were pretty powerful. There would only be advantages if he stayed on their team. "Are you sure you're not going to ask about my origins before recruiting me as one of your own? What if I've done something really terrible in the past?" Battle number 1 was still unwilling to accept Gilding's decision. After all, he knew that a large majority of humans would not accept him because of his past. He might not have been directly involved in the war from start to finish, but exactly what the humans had classified him as back then, he was an advanced-level war criminal. If he and his friends had not manufactured the ultimate weapon, the battle would not have turned out so tragically. From what Neptune said, you're a life form from over 10 billion years ago. No matter what you did back then, it has been 10 billion years now. It should be long enough that it was put in the history textbook of the Middle Ages. A large majority of interstellar pirates have dark pasts. We don't need to know what you did in the past. That's part of your privacy. We have no way of changing the past, but we can change the present. Gilding expressed exactly what he believed in. He had never asked Lilioth about her past. He only knew that if she one day wished to talk about it, he would sit beside her and lend her an ear. That was all that mattered. "I have 2 requests. If you agree to these 2 requests, I will agree to join you," Battle number 1 replied after a moment of silence. He was indeed struggling inside. "The first request, I will only take on the role of a mechanic in the team. I won't participate in any combat because I hate fighting. We only need a mechanic. You can leave the combat to us." Gilding nodded and agreed without hesitating. In fact, he was not planning on allowing their mechanic to participate in combat from the start. "The second request, I need you to give me a new name. I don't want to use the name Battle number 1 anymore." Having said those words, Battle number 1 stared at Gilding. "How about Robert?" Gilding grinned. "I like that name. It fits me very well." Battle number 1 gladly agreed. "I've already inspected the ship. It's quite old. It would be nice to give it a major makeover. But the main concern right now should be repairing certain damaged areas. I'll list down the needed materials for you. Once the materials are ready, I can start working on it." "How long will it roughly take for you to repair it?" Gilding was contemplating between staying on the planet or leaving it first and repairing it on the way. "Once all the materials are ready, I should be able to repair it in half an hour or so." Robert did not find it very hard to do, but Neptune told me that if a mechanic shop were to repair it, it would take at least 2 days' time. "Are you sure half an hour is enough?" Naturally, Gilding trusted Neptune's words more. However, Robert seemed pretty confident too. If Robert says he only needs half an hour, then perhaps it will only take half an hour. The machinery civilization's craftsmanship is completely different from what has been passed down to this age. My earlier calculations that it would take 2 days were based on this planet's current standard of craftsmanship, Neptune explained in Gilding's ears. "Don't worry, Captain. Half an hour will be enough for me." Judging from Robert's tone, he sounded really confident. It was his first job in the team, and he planned to perform well to reflect his worth. "Before it turns dark, Lili and I will split up to look for the materials. If it's possible, I hope we can leave tonight itself. The Onassis family is sure to have leaked information on us being on this planet by now. The longer we stay on this planet, the more dangerous it'll be for us." Although Gilding was not afraid of encountering any challenges, no one enjoyed having trouble turn up at their doorsteps. The private bounty that was being offered by the Onassis family was worth 1 billion star credits. It was enough to have rank 7 gene body powerhouses take action. Gilding knew that if he encountered any rank 7 gene body martial arts practitioners in his current state, his chances of survival were slim. After obtaining Robert's list, Neptune showed them the fastest purchase route immediately. In order to purchase all the materials, they had to make 5 trips to 5 different processing plants. After getting off the spaceship, Gilding and Lilioth went separate ways, walking toward 2 different ore processing plants that were in different directions. "Neptune, watch over Lili. The Onassis family might have spread the news about our whereabouts last night. I predict that the first wave of interstellar hunters have already arrived at this planet by now. Regarding Lily, remind her to try her best to avoid the enemy. Before Gilding could finish his sentence, Neptune cut him off. It's too late. From the very moment both of you got off the spaceship, you both started being tailed. Neptune brought rather bad news. I've reminded Lily to be cautious. People who do things like tailing others typically don't have any strong abilities. Don't worry. If any problems arise, I'll inform you as soon as possible. Alright then. I'd like to see how capable this fellow who's tailing me is. Gilding broke into a grin, consecutively executing the ultimate arts level 6 silent step. In the blink of an eye, he vanished on the spot. Standing at the corner of a building, a man in black blinked twice before he realized that Gilding, whom he had his sights on earlier, had vanished. As for Lilioth, she adopted a completely different approach. After receiving Neptune's prompt, she entered a small alley that had very few people in it. The person tailing her followed her into it as well. However, after making a few turns while trying to follow Lilioth, he realized that he had lost her. "Hey, are you looking for me?" He heard a voice behind him. In addition to that, he felt a cold sensation coming from the back of his neck. "I hope you'll have a sweet dream." Lilioth pulled the trigger. The man's body fell limp to the ground immediately. Lilioth bent down and pulled out the anesthetic needle from the man's neck, turned, and then left. Chapter 77, Dangerous Enemy. A burly man stood near the grey-faced buzzard as he stared upward at it. He did so for about half a second before the communicator on his wrist suddenly sounded. "Master, I lost them," a voice was heard from the communicator. "I know. You should head back for now." The man hung up the phone and dialed another number. The phone rang 3 times before he decided to cancel the call. Normally, his men answered his calls within 2 rings. If they did not answer after 2 rings, it only meant one thing: the person on the other line was dead. The man clenched his fists hard before releasing his strength. With a grin on the corners of his mouth, he said, "Very well. Brave enough to kill my men, I see." After a while, he dialed another number. "Don't bother coming over, Woody's dead. Go over there and take care of things. When you're done, I'll arrange a proper funeral for him. But before that, I'll teach Gilding a painful lesson." Gilding went to 3 ore processing plants one after another. His purchases went smoothly. It seemed like the ore processing plants had not been notified by Bundy about him. The Onassis family must have not expected Gilding to purchase ores and process them himself, because it was very rare for people to own processing equipment. Normally, only repair shops and space docks had them. Even a typical mechanic would not have the proper tools and the molds for it. A piece of processing equipment often ran for up to 1,000,000 star credits, and a fist-sized mold cost at least tens of thousands of star credits. In addition to that, there were tens of thousands of types of molds. It was simply not affordable for any typical mechanic. Lilioth had also gone to 2 ore processing plants herself. She was able to arrive at the starport before Gilding because she went to 1 less plant than him. When Lilioth arrived at the starport, she immediately noticed the burly man standing below the grey-faced buzzard. The man was wearing a pair of blue striped trousers along with a white shirt and a brown tie that hugged his collar tightly. He looked extremely professional with his short blonde hair that was combed toward the back of his head. His back was pencil straight, and his hands hung coolly in his pockets. Nevertheless, he was merely a sharp sword that had been unsheathed and was ready in Lilioth's eyes. The man noticed Lilioth's gaze immediately as well. Glancing at her, the corners of his mouth raised slightly as he said, "Lilioth, the little witch. Someone has recently been the talk of the town." His voice was not loud, but it reached Lilioth's ears clearly. "You're from the army." Lilioth made her deduction instantly. "Oh? I thought Gilding was the only one who had observation and analytical skills. I was not expecting you to be filled with such surprises." The man narrowed his eyes. "Lilioth, I couldn't find anything about that name of yours. Is it really your name? Does Gilding know your real name?" "That's none of your business." Upon hearing his words, Lilioth's face changed. "What's my business, then?" "Is it not my business since you killed one of my men just now?" A murderous aura flashed across the man's eyes. "I'd say that it was the biggest mistake you made in Kunstlerk." When Lilioth heard what he said, she recalled the guy that had been put to sleep by her. Back then, it looked like the man in front of her thought that she had killed him. Even so, Lilioth had not bothered explaining herself. She thought that she did not have to explain anything to anyone from the Federation Army because whatever they assumed was their own business. Don't forget that you're at the Starport. The Starport Authority has the say around here. It's unauthorized for people from the army to bust interstellar pirates here. At that moment, Lilioth was already aware that she was no match for him. But I'm not wearing a uniform now, am I? The man stretched out both his hands. You should also know that since I'm not in uniform, I'm acting on behalf of myself. If you want to fight, bring it on. Lilioth's combat armor that was on her arms began to change form. It turned into a sniper rifle, and she quickly loaded armor-piercing shells into it. Based on my knowledge, you're merely a gunner. Do you really think you have a chance against me? Why don't you see for yourself? Lilioth's eyes were locked on her opponent as she pulled the trigger. Lilioth has started a fight with a man from the army. Hurry up and get to her as soon as possible. He's a rank 7 gene body. If both of you team up together, you geese may have a chance. Earlier, Neptune had noticed the powerful opponent. In addition to that, he had told Lilioth to buy some time by laying low and waiting for Gyuding. Nevertheless, Lilioth, unfortunately, did not heed his advice. A rank 7 gene body? He's considered a powerhouse among the senior colonels in the Federation Army, right? Why did he change out of his uniform just to hunt us down? He won't get anything out of it. Gyuding could not wrap his head around it. Regardless of whether people from the army wore casual clothes or not, they would not receive any bounties for capturing interstellar pirates. The other party had come to the starport dressed in casual clothes. Although he was not acting as part of the army, there was still a chance that he would get suspended for acting ultra vires. As for capturing Gyuding and Lilioth to hand them over to the Onassis family in exchange for a private reward, there was no need in taking the risk by doing it at the starport. He could have waited for them to leave before he took action. Therefore, Gyuding could not understand why the man insisted on waiting for the two of them right under their spaceship at the starport. There was absolutely no benefit for him to catch Gyuding and Lilioth. The strangest thing of all was that the man had come by himself. Under normal circumstances, he should have brought a few men with him to block possible exit points where Gyuding and Lilioth could escape through. Is there any more information about the guy? Gyuding asked. Neptune immediately searched for information about the man. Name: Senior Cola. Sex: male. Age: 29. Occupation: Federation Army. Army rank: Senior Colonel. Gene level: Level 7. Special ability 1, Razor Blade. Ability description: ability to change both hands into sharp blades anytime. Special ability 2, Level 2 Defense. Ability description: defense power is doubled for half an hour. Side effects: enter prostration mode for 3 hours with halved combat power. Highest bounty ever captured, 710 million. Accumulated capture amount, 27.7 billion. Gyuding rushed back to the starport quickly and found that the battle between Lilioth and her opponent was still ongoing. The majority of the time, Senior was dodging her attacks instead of attacking her. The moment Senior sensed Gyuding's arrival, he beckoned to him. This little girl is of average strength. Why don't you join her so both of you may stand a chance? As you wish. Gyuding winked at Lilioth. As soon as Gyuding had arrived and saw that Lilioth's bullets were flying around with no direction, he knew what she was up to. Lilioth had been deliberately acting weak to buy time. She was pretending to not be able to keep up with her opponent so that he would lower his guard. In fact, Lilioth had never once shown her extraordinary gunmanship in videos, so nobody knew what her level of marksmanship was. As the corners of Lilioth's lips raised to a grin, Gyuding knew that it was time to make a move the moment she pulled the trigger. Chapter 78, Senior's Abrupt Pullback. A rank 7 gene body martial arts practitioner usually had a cell index between 3,000 points and 10,000 points. Using special means to stimulate the cells, it was possible for some of them to exceed 10,000 points. Since the army prioritized talent cultivation, they did everything to improve their people. Senior was merely 29 years old, but he was already a rank 7 gene body. Although it was not comparable to the genius beasts in the elite legion, he was considered to have very high qualifications compared to common people. In a place like the army, which was full of high-ranked talents, toxic management was even more rampant. Of course, a person such as Senior would not be let go so easily. After some special training and the use of gene medicine, Senior's cell index had managed to exceed 13,000 points. His strength was not that much different from that of a brigade general. The only difference between him and them was the number of meritorious services. Both Gilding and Liliath knew very well that the guy in front of them was an unprecedented enemy. Not only did rank 7 gene bodies have cell indexes that far exceeded a rank 6 gene bodies, but their strength and speed were on a whole other level. Gilding was barely able to keep up with his opponent's move even with his level 6 ultimate arts and level 2 rage attack. Each time he struck, his opponent blocked his attack easily. For Liliath, she had to work even harder. Although she had her special pupillary power, she could only anticipate the moves of a level 6 gene body at most. In order to predict Senior's movements, she could only go as far as having a rough idea. Each time she fired, she had to rely on her gunning instincts. Fortunately, she was an excellent gunner and her gunning instincts were usually spot on. There were two main gunning factions. One of them was the violent Grushing faction, and the other was the team support faction. Liliath belonged to the latter. The goal of every bullet she fired was to block her opponent's attack based on her prediction of how he would move next. Nevertheless, Liliath's usual strategy of predicting her opponent's moves had become increasingly difficult as she could not fully comprehend her opponent's movements. Despite all of that, Liliath was able to overcome the challenge. In order to assist Gilding, Liliath went as far as to change her guns to become smaller so that she could attack more frequently. Although the decreased power of her guns resulted in her attacks being unable to cause major damage to Senior, her main role as the team's support was not to inflict damage but to distract and obstruct. With the help of Neptune, Gilding was able to locate Senior's weak points on his body. Nevertheless, Senior did not have many weak points. He only had around 10 of them. People like Senior who had been professionally trained fared significantly differently compared to amateurs like Der. Gilding also knew that compared to his opponent, his own attack power was lacking. The only way he stood a chance of winning was as if he started to chip away at his opponent's weak points. Gilding attacked madly and in less than a minute, he had managed to launch hundreds of attacks consecutively. He did so to prevent his opponent from having a chance to retaliate. Ever since Gilding and Liliath had teamed up, Senior was no longer able to relax as he noticed that Gilding's every attack was aimed at his weak points. Senior was forced to defend passively. At the same time, Senior also noticed that Liliath's gunmanship was way better than anyone's in the army. Furthermore, he knew that at Liliath's gene level, she was unable to predict his moves. Nevertheless, every bullet she fired accurately hit their target. In addition to all of that, the teamwork Gilding and Liliath had was undeniably good. Each time one of them attacked him, the other would attack his weak spots without hesitation. It was the same whenever he was about to attack Gilding's weak spots. When they were revealed, Liliath's bullets would hit him accurately to successfully block his counterattack. This little girl seems to have mastered the support techniques, and the teamwork between both of them is phenomenal. I'd even go as far as to say that the teamwork they have is better than people who have worked together in the army for more than 10 years. Senior frowned. At the starport, the fight between the three of them had caused an audience to form around them. People from Starport Authority had also noticed their fight, and they began to send security personnel over. As the fight ensued, a few busybodies started recording a video of the battle. Soon, the security personnel that had been dispatched by Starport Authority quickly arrived at the scene. "I have to ask the three of you to stop your fight immediately. Otherwise, Starport Authority has the right to arrest you for disturbing peace," a man dressed in a Starport Authority uniform shouted at the three of them. Gilding and Liliath had no intention of stopping. They were interstellar pirates, and the Federal Starport Authority could not take any legal action against the two of them. Senior was not showing signs of stopping either because the feud between the Army and the Starport Authority had been a long-standing one. If it was not for the Starport Authority, the Army would have already captured more than 10 times the total amount of wanted criminals they had taken into custody. Not to mention, Senior had already expected such a thing to happen the moment he took off his uniform. They had killed his men. In order to defend his people, it would not be fair unless he taught Gilding and Liliath a lesson. He sliced the bullet that Liliath had shot toward the center of his forehead with his razor blades, and he started to pick up the pace. He wanted to use this method to mess up Gilding's rhythmic attack. Once Gilding's rhythm was disrupted, his biggest weak spot would appear. Hence, Senior had decided that it was the easiest way for him to break the current deadlock. Gilding immediately felt the pressure double. Throughout the entire battle, he had been on the attacking side. Nevertheless, despite performing rage attacks continuously for 10 minutes, not one of his attacks landed on his opponent, as the latter had managed to perfectly dodge all of them. His opponent had also managed to locate his weak spots a few times, judging by his counterattacks. Fortunately, Lilith had been vigilant toward their opponent's counterattacks and blocked them with her bullets. If it was not for her, Gilding would have been defeated long ago. Once their opponent broke free of their oppressive attacks, their opponent's counterattacks would be fatal. This guy's too strong. Even if you managed to level up to level 7 of Ultimate Arts, you wouldn't be able to cause any serious damage to him. He hasn't even used his level 2 defense yet. Neptune had not expected their opponent to be so powerful either. After all, a rank 7 gene body had strengths and weaknesses. If one was weak, their cell index might reach 3000 something. On the other hand, if one was strong, it was possible that their cell index exceeded 10,000. Neptune could only search for information on their opponent, and their opponent's cell index was not something he could make sure of. Nevertheless, Neptune was able to get a rough idea of their opponent's cell index with Gilding's attack strength. Based on my estimations, this guy probably has a cell index of at least 12,000. Even though he's just a senior colonel in the army, his combat strength is comparable to that of the brigade generals. Gilding knew where he stood. If Neptune thought that he had no chance of winning, he had to start thinking about how to get out of the sticky situation with Lilith. At that very moment, Senior suddenly leapt out of the battle area. His eyes fell on two men who were dressed in black clothing and were standing in the distance. One of them was being supported by the other. Master Senior, Woody's not dead. He just got anesthetized. The man who had tailed Gilding shouted at Senior. You guys are different from other interstellar pirates I've captured before. Senior put his hands back in his pockets. He seemed to have decided to stop attacking them. Let me give you two a piece of advice. Don't cause any more trouble on this planet, alright? After he said that, he brushed his shoulder against Gilding's as he walked past the latter and headed toward the men clothed in black. Hey, I still don't understand something, Gilding shouted at Senior. Why did you choose to attack us at the starport? My orders from the start were to keep my eyes on both of you. I only attacked because I thought you guys killed Woody. I only wanted to teach you two a lesson. Senior stopped in his steps and answered them. Who gave you the orders? Gilding questioned immediately. You ask too many questions. Senior turned his head over. One more thing. The next time I see the two of you, I won't take it easy anymore. Chapter 79, The Army's S-Rank Mission. After Senior had left, Gilding quickly pulled Lilith and rushed into the spaceship. Neptune, start the spaceship. We're getting away from this place immediately, Gilding ordered as the captain the moment they got onto the spaceship. Shouldn't we wait for the ship to be repaired first? And the Onassis family? Lilith asked, puzzled. What happened on this planet doesn't matter. What's important is that we leave as soon as possible. Didn't you see Senior's strength? What if he's merely a chess piece in their game? Each second we stay longer brings us one step closer to death. Gilding was as serious as he had ever been. He had never been one who talked about conspiracy theories. However, what they had seen happen on this planet was too uncanny to be coincidental. Everything was giving Gilding the heebie-jeebies, whether it was Senior's answers or the Golden Eagle-grade spaceship. Moreover, his intuition had always been right. Neptune had just started up the power system when the loudspeaker at the starport sounded. Apologies to all passengers. The starport's admittance platform will be blocked immediately for repairs due to mechanical failures. The time required for the repairs is to be confirmed. Passengers that are planning to leave Kinstlik within these 2 days are kindly advised to postpone their departure date. We are very sorry for the inconvenience caused. Can we make it if we rush out of here? Gilding asked Neptune, ignoring the announcement. No, the spaceship's startup speed isn't fast enough, and we may hit something along the way. Neptune disagreed as he said, furthermore, the admittance platform on this planet is half-automated. If I try to hack into their control system, they can immediately unplug the power supply of the network system and use mechanical control to turn on the protective barrier at the platform. In other words, we're trapped on this planet. Gilding's brows furrowed as he had a vague ominous hunch. Neptune, Check the previous video recording by Starport Authority to see who was on the Golden Eagle. Didn't you say you wanted to stay away from that matter? Liliath also felt that the development of the whole situation was a bit strange. We're trapped here. If they can make Starport Authority block the admittance platform, breaking into our spaceship wouldn't be a hard task for them. Before this, I didn't want to know what happened because I was worried that we would end up opening a can of worms. But now we have to know what's happening in order to plan the best solution. Gilding knew that even if they decided to hide in their spaceship throughout the entire duration, trouble would still come and find them. It was better to take the initiative and see what was happening so that they could come up with a solution in advance. Neptune was able to infiltrate Starport Authority's network quickly. After a while, he brought news to Gilding that the latter dreaded to hear. I couldn't find any information on the video from that day. Starport Authority's memory is brand new and it seems like the video has been wiped out. Information on the new chip was duplicated by someone, but they omitted the information from that day. All information concerning that day is gone as if the day was shipped. I also looked up the serial number of the Golden Eagle grade spaceship on the internet. That spaceship was authorized for the S-rank mission that day. Only the Lord of a Cosmic Nation and the Marshal of the Army could have had the permission to view it. Such kind of mission could only have been accepted by a general in the army. Even though Neptune was unable to find a lot of useful information, the level of the mission spoke for itself, which is to say, there's at least one general from the army that's on this planet. Gilding's brows furrowed deeper. Generals from the army usually have two types of missions. One of them is independent missions that are carried out without any men being below them. Another one of them is team missions. In the case of team missions, the general will take at least two major generals with him. If the task's level of difficulty is higher, a lieutenant general or even a colonel general may join in. Liliath started to look worried. Senior is obviously a member of the operation then. That also means that the general isn't carrying out an independent mission but a team operation instead. Except for the general from the army, there are two more major generals on this planet. Gilding took a deep breath. I just discovered that the signals on this planet are isolated from the outside world. It seems like they've activated a complete shield around the entire planet, Neptune said as he bore more bad news to them. Although I can break through it if I spend some time on it, I don't think it would do you guys any good from the looks of it. Robert, we have the materials ready. Since there's no way to leave now, you can go ahead and repair the spaceship first. Gilding looked at Robert who had been quiet this whole time. Gilding proceeded to pour out all the materials they had purchased from his inventory. Need any help from us? No. The two of you will only make the whole process longer. Robert shook his head. However, if you guys have some time, the two of you can bring me a few things. I tinker around with gadgets during my free time. Usually, when I'm done with spaceships, I have some time on my hands. Okay, give us a list. Lily and I will go out and buy them later. Gilding nodded. Liliath also proceeded to pour out the materials she had bought. Upon hearing Gilding's words, she asked with some uncertainty, "Are you sure that we should get off the spaceship? Isn't it a bit unsafe for us to move around before we know what the current situation is? This planet is no longer safe for interstellar pirates and that includes our spaceship." Gilding shook his head. "Besides us, I'm sure that most of the other interstellar pirates have also met such sorts of bizarre situations. Let's see how they deal with them, and we can check it out for ourselves if anyone knows what's going on." Go to a tavern? Liliath immediately knew where Gilding wanted to go. The tavern was where most interstellar pirates gathered. It was also one of the channels where pirates could share information. "Captain, I've sent the list to your inbox," Robert said. "All right then. Lily, you go to the tavern first. I'll help Robert with the list. Once I'm done, I'll go to the tavern to look for you." Gilding glanced at the list in his inbox. There were a lot of things on it but most of them could be found in grocery stores. Nevertheless, when Gilding saw nuclear trigger on the list, he raised his eyebrow. He remembered seeing the device in a book for weapon making before. Even so, he did not think too much about it. Although Robert was not going to join them in battles, making weapons for self-defense was still necessary. Robert was already part of his team, so he let the thought go. The reason why Gilding wanted to shop by himself and had asked Liliath to head to the tavern first was that she would be safer there. Although the tavern was rowdy, There was a large amount of interstellar pirates there. It meant that Lilioth's safety was guaranteed even if people from the army barged in. If she went shopping, there was a possibility that she would encounter a sniper on a similar level as Senior. Gilding did not want to risk Lilioth getting trapped in such sort of situation again. Lilioth knew what Gilding was thinking as well. She only nodded her head and said nothing. The two got off the spaceship and left in two different directions. Lilioth walked toward the tavern, which was less than 200 meters away from the starport, while Gilding walked toward the city, heading for the grocery store. Chapter 80. The Mysterious Old Man. When Lilioth pushed open the door to the loud tavern, she frowned slightly. The rowdiness in the tavern, combined with the smell of sweat, alcohol, and tobacco that filled the air, made her a little uncomfortable. However, it was not her first time visiting the tavern. She walked up to the bar with familiarity and climbed up a bar stool. Her looks attracted the attention of many people. After all, she was only 14 years old. She still resembled a tween girl with her tiny and skinny body. When the crowd saw her climbing up the bar stool, a few laughs were heard from them. Lilioth turned a deaf ear because she did not want to cause trouble. She followed exactly what Gilding had told her to do. The purpose of her going to the tavern was to get some information. She knocked on the bar counter, but the bartender only looked at her. "Do you want some juice or milk?" "A glass of sapphire, thanks." Lilioth grinned slightly. "Sapphire?" The bartender could not help but laugh. "Little lady, do you know how much a glass of sapphire is?" 36,000 star credits. "Isn't that the usual price in all taverns?" "Are you worried that I'm unable to afford it?" Lilioth frowned. "Give this little lady a glass of sapphire, I'll pay for it," shouted a burly, gray-haired old man at the bartender. The man had suddenly appeared beside Lilioth out of nowhere. The old man had a pair of deep-set blue eyes, strong facial features, and a scar on his right chin. Nevertheless, most people who saw his eyes would inadvertently forget about his handsome looks as well as the prominent scar on his chin. The bartender was shocked by the old man's appearance, and it was evident that the bartender had been stunned by his aura. After half a second, the bartender managed to say, "But she's still a minor." "A minor? Did your tavern just open today? Don't you know that some people here started drinking barrels of rum from the age of 3? The old man's reply roused the interest of many interstellar pirates in the tavern. "Exactly. I was able to drink 3 barrels in one go when I was 8. I was able to drink 5 barrels when I was 5. Yeah, right." "Who was it that stripped off their clothes and started dancing on top of the bar after less than a barrel just a few days ago?" Although the federal law specified that minors under the age of 16 could not consume alcohol, only larger taverns in the city center adhered to the rule. The tavern near the starport usually only got interstellar pirates as customers. Therefore, the tavern would not be able to get any customers if they followed the rules strictly. The bartender no longer dared to refute, so he picked up some ingredients and began mixing. The old man nodded at Lilioth with a smile and proceeded to sit beside her without a word. He hooked his finger and a bottle of aged liquor began to hover slowly from the wine cabinet before landing firmly on the bar counter in front of him. Then, he lifted his finger again and a clean glass hovered over before landing beside the bottle. Without the man moving, the liquor bottle's cork unscrewed itself and liquor was poured into the transparent glass. After a few seconds, the bottle stopped pouring right before the glass began to overflow. Not a drop was wasted. Everyone in the tavern was stunned when it happened. Even Lilioth was a little shocked. A psychokinesis powerhouse, Lilioth said to herself. The ability to use psychokinesis was acquired when one's spirit strength had evolved to a certain extent. If one wished to evolve the ability, the minimum number of spirit strength points they had to have was 10,000. Even a martial arts practitioner who specialized in spirit strength was required to evolve into the rank 8 gene body before their spirit strength count could exceed 10,000 points. The old man right in front of their eyes was undoubtedly a terrific powerhouse. After Lilioth's sapphire was made, she looked at the azure liquid in her glass. She stirred her glass a couple of times and observed its color. "I wasn't expecting you to be an expert at such a young age." The old man smiled when he saw how she was acting. "I know a thing or two." Lilioth felt that the old man was not malicious, so she stuck her tongue out in embarrassment. The old man picked up his glass. "Come and drink one with this old man." Lilioth looked at his glass that was about to spill over. A mischievous thought appeared in her mind, and she decided to clink the man's glass with force. However, She had not expected the liquor in the man's glass to move as if the mouth of the glass was wrapped around with invisible energy. It made the liquor impossible to spill. When the old man noticed what Liliath's intentions were, he only smiled faintly. He raised another toast to Liliath again as he said, "I hope that we'll all be able to leave this planet safely." After the old man toasted, he gulped the glass of liquor down in one go and knocked on the bar counter. "Bill, please." When he paid the bill, that was when the crowd noticed that he did not have an intelligent wristwatch. Instead, he had a black ring on his left hand's ring finger. It was an intelligent ring. The man stretched out his ring in front of the cash register, and the cash register soon showed a prompt that said the payment was successful. "Your drink has already been paid for." The old man winked at Liliath and disappeared the next moment. It was as if he had never been there. Liliath was stunned. Even with her pupillary abilities, she was unable to capture the movements of the old man. It was as if he had disappeared out of thin air. The people in the tavern started talking. Who was that old man just now? That guy must have a gene body of at least rank 8 or above. He appeared and disappeared without a trace. Is that some kind of a special ability? Liliath did not care too much about the crowd's discussion. She was more concerned about the last thing the old man had said. He hoped that all of them would be able to leave the planet safely. That sentence clearly contained a deeper meaning. The old man probably knew what was happening on the planet. In spite of that, Liliath knew that she probably would not have gotten an answer even if she had asked him about it. "Lili," a familiar voice called out to her. Gilding reached out and waved his hand in front of Liliath's eyes. "What are you thinking about?" "Oh, nothing. I was just thinking about some stuff." Liliath shook her head. The old man was still on her mind. After having some thoughts about it, she decided to tell Gilding about what had happened. When Gilding heard the story, he grinned. "It sounds like that mister is a powerful man. It's too bad that we didn't get to cross paths. He seems to know what's happening on this planet. Unfortunately, I was unable to ask him about it. Regardless, I'm not sure if he would have answered me even if I had asked him. It doesn't matter, we'll find out by ourselves. Since we're stuck here and have all this time on our hands." It did not seem to bother Gilding too much. "Have you bought everything?" Liliath asked. "Yup, I got all of them. But I noticed that a guy was following me along the way. I guessed that it was probably one of Senior's men, so I ignored him." "Let's get back to the ship, then. It's getting late." Liliath put the glass that she had only taken a sip from on the counter. "We're not rushing. Finish it." Gilding looked at the azure-colored liquid in Liliath's glass. He knew how much the drink was worth and it would be a waste to not drink it. He knocked on the bar counter and shouted at the bartender, "Bring me a glass of milk." Chapter 81. I would never abandon my partner. When they returned to the ship, Gilding and Liliath were surprised to find the damaged part of the spaceship completely restored. Not only was it fully repaired, but there was also no trace of previous damage. It looked completely new. Even the tiny defects that the spaceship had from when it was shipped out of the factory had been repaired by Robert. When Gilding saw Robert curled up and looking up at the starry sky, he walked over to him. Gilding joined Robert, sat down next to him, and looked up at the vast galaxy. "I haven't seen such a view in a very long time. I've never thought about how beautiful the sky was before," Robert said with fascination in his voice. "Ever since I was little, my old man told me that nothing could beat the most beautiful view in the world, a sea of stars. I never understood it until the day I left Sarul and watched it shrink slowly in front of my eyes. That was the moment I realized I'd always remember the beautiful blue planet. So every time I look up at the starry sky, I think about where Sarul is in the vast galaxy." Gilding looked at the sky as he laid on the deck with his hands under his head. Liliath sat close to them, cleaning her combat armor with her head down. Upon hearing Gilding's words, she looked up at the sky and a thoughtful look appeared on her face. Late into the night, the dew on the deck got heavier. When Gilding felt that the coldness was beginning to creep up, he rolled over and sat up. He soon realized that he was covered with a thin blanket and that he had fallen asleep quite a while ago. When he saw that the lights in Liliath's room were turned off, he knew that she was fast asleep. However, the sound of metal being cut was coming from the cabin in the distance, so Gilding knew that Robert was still up. He grabbed the blanket and walked toward his room. The next morning, Gilding woke up early. "Any updates from the army?" "No, The planet's internal network shows that many people are complaining about this matter, but no one knows what happened. Some people are also guessing that the army is doing something on this planet, but that's about it. No one has any details. Neptune had collected information the night before but found almost nothing. Lily and I are getting off to get some breakfast first. Can you ask Robert if he wants us to bring anything for him? Gilding said and knocked on Liliath's door. About Robert, Neptune seemed hesitant. I don't hear him making anything. Did he get off the spaceship? Gilding knocked on Robert's door when he heard Neptune's tone, which was slightly weird. Robert's gone. Neptune's voice was soft, but Gilding heard him clearly. Gone? What do you mean? Gilding did not understand. He said he had things to deal with so that we can leave this planet as soon as possible. Neptune had to tell Gilding the truth. He also said that he left something in his room, and both of you will understand when you see it. Neptune opened Robert's door after he said that. What's going on? Liliath had just finished changing her clothes and was walking out of her room. She could not help but ask when she saw Gilding standing at Robert's door. She followed Gilding into Robert's room, and a palm-sized projector turned on automatically. It projected a three-dimensional image of Robert. Apologies to the captain, Lily, and Neptune. It was my pleasure getting to know the two of you throughout the past 2 days. In my time, I've never interacted this much with humans before. I used to hate humans because they always thought that we're just machines, just tools. Humans have never respected my kind. Because of such issues, a war ensued. My partners and I built super weapons. Only when the super weapons caused a large-scale disaster, that was when I realized revenge is meaningless. It only results in more pain and guilt. After the war had ended, I asked my partner to take out my battery and bury me on this planet. When I was buried, there were also 3 super weapon ships left from the war. When I was dug out, the locals noticed something, and soon, the officials realized that this place is an ancient ruin. So they drove away the residents and began a deeper excavation. Those guys then dug up a super weapon. That's why people from the army keep appearing around this area. Gilding immediately understood why the army had sent a general to the planet, as well as why they had classified all the information. I've been secretly praying ever since the beginning that they wouldn't dig out the super weapon because we had them buried very deep underground. We even shielded it so that people wouldn't be able to find it. However, as time passed, the shield's energy depleted and the federal government was able to easily detect all 3 of the super weapons. After that, they notified the army and excavations were prohibited. Once excavations were prohibited, the federal government sent 2 generals and 3 colonel generals. They were ordered to send their best men to this planet as soon as possible. The moment they arrived, the excavations resumed once again. They closed down the starport and blocked all types of information yesterday because they managed to dig up the first super weapon. It confirmed what they had detected. I regret not destroying the 3 super weapons back then, but I won't let another tragedy happen again for the second time. Such kind of power should never be controlled by anyone because it will only bring unimaginable disasters. I have the idea to destroy them completely before the 3 super weapons fall into the wrong hands. That's exactly what I shall do. Please leave this planet as soon as you can. I've tweaked the mechanical control of the starport's canopy so that Neptune can reopen it directly through the network system. In addition to that, I also prepared a little gift for you under the bed in my room. They are single-use combat consumables that will let you escape from level 7 Gene Body martial arts practitioners. All I can do is this. I wish the 2 of you peace and happiness forever. Neptune, where's Robert right now? Gilding's voice was low as he watched the projection disappear. The most sensible thing we can do right now is to leave this planet according to Robert's advice. Neptune fell silent for a moment. He thought that Gilding was acting a little irrational. 2 generals, 3 colonel generals, and at least 4 major generals. Don't forget who you are. You're merely an interstellar pirate, and they're people from the army. You remember how helpless you felt when you fought Senior, right? The number of interstellar pirates that they've killed is merely a fraction of the number of people from the army. The only thing I know is that Robert is our partner. He's you, me, and Lily's approved partner. I'll never leave a partner behind. Gilding clenched his fists and shouted hysterically, I'll do anything even if it's the last thing I do. I'll never ever abandon a partner. Chapter 82. The Perfect Player. When Neptune sensed Gilding's rage, he went quiet. However, Liliath spoke up, I'll go with you. After a moment of thought, Neptune chose to compromise. If you must go, make a plan first. Otherwise, I won't tell you where Robert is. The information we have right now is very patchy. All we know now is that the army sent 2 generals, 3 colonel generals, and at least 4 major generals. As for the number of lower-ranking officers, such as senior colonels, we have no idea. Liliath listed the information that they currently knew. We don't know who these people are or what their abilities are. But from the encounter with Senior, it seems like they already know everything about us. Gilding added, and it seems like no matter where we go, we'll have their cronies following us around, keeping an eye on us. Don't worry too much about the guys following you. I can make sure they don't notice the 2 of you leaving. Neptune was not worried about that issue, and he proceeded to drop another surprising bomb on the 2 of them. I've already got a list of the people who came to planet Kunstlerk. Didn't you tell me that information was impossible to find? Gilding said when he found out Neptune had been keeping something from them. It's true that I wasn't able to find anything regarding this name list. I used other means to find out who was on the list. Neptune's intention was not to hide anything. I didn't tell you guys before this because you geese weren't planning to be involved in this mess. If I told you, it'd just create unnecessary worry. In fact, the 2 of you weren't the only ones Starport has been monitoring. Almost every interstellar pirates that is somewhat famous has been monitored. I was able to get the faces of the people who are monitoring you guys through the monitors to find their information. Based on their organizational chart, I was able to trace their superiors, and then their superiors' superiors, as well as all various other direct and indirect relationships. For example, I found intel on their relatives, who were in their classes during military college. After compiling the list, I compared and cross-referenced the list with the Army's current task checklist. Through doing that, I was able to get a shortened, more accurate list of names. Neptune projected the name list that he compiled. Indeed, he had spent a lot of time putting together the list. Name: Wendell. Sex: male. Age: 41. Occupation: Federation Army. Army rank: General. Gene level: Level 9. Special ability: Hurricane. Level 8. Ability description: the horrific ability to summon a hurricane. Highest bounty ever captured: 71 million universe credits. Name: Sharp. Sex: male. Age: 43. Occupation: Federation Army. Army rank: General. Gene level: Level 10. Special ability: none. Other abilities: 9-star swordsman. Highest bounty ever captured: 130 million universe credits. When Gilding saw the breakdown of information on the 2 generals, he did not feel relieved at all. Both names were familiar to him. Wendell was one of the few people who had abilities in the natural stream. In any case, people with the natural stream abilities had terrifying strength. Once their abilities reached a certain level, they would be able to undergo elemental assimilation between their bodies and abilities. That meant that ordinary attacks would be ineffective on them. Sharp, on the other hand, was a legend. He was the first swordsman in Dragonsaur Cosmic Nation, achieving a level 10 gene body without awakening any abilities. That was why he was able to devote his mind fully to swordsmanship, and his combat skills established him as one of the strongest among the 4 generals. Gilding then looked at the others' information. None of the 3 colonel generals were like he had ever seen. All of them were top level 8 gene body fighters. Neptune was not too sure of the number of major generals selected, so he estimated that there were 6 level 8 gene body powerhouses. As for the senior colonels discovered by Neptune from the starport, there were 12 of them. All of their strengths were on par with senior. Their current task was only to monitor the movements of interstellar pirates. It seemed that their ranks were not high enough to be participating in the core parts of the mission. Neptune also added several people who might happen to appear on the planet into the name list. When Gilding and Liliath saw the name list, their hearts felt a little heavy. There were more than 30 people in the name list provided by Neptune, and all of them were more than capable of killing both Gilding and Liliath. What should we do? Liliath bit her lower lip and she looked a little dazed. She could not figure out a way they could escape the predicament they found themselves in, let alone save someone. First of all, we must avoid the people who are monitoring us and leave the spaceship undetected. If the people monitoring us spot any movement, they will notify their superiors, who will deploy units to intercept us. Gilding meticulously thought out a plan. That won't be too difficult. I can create an opportunity that will divert their attention away from monitoring you so you guys will have a chance to slip away. Neptune told them the corresponding strategy. Then the only thing left to do is to head to Robert's destination from the starport. But we can't let the people from the army find us either. Otherwise, we'll also be stopped from reaching our destination. Gilding was more worried about that half of the journey. On that road, there will unquestionably be people sent by the army to guard the place. Additionally, it's more than likely that it'll be guarded by a major general rank powerhouse. Yesterday, I managed to bypass the planet's network's blockade and spread the news of the super weapons. At the same time, I've also shared the army name list that I made. I believe that by today, there'll be proper powerhouses of various abilities rushing over to this planet. We'll wait for nightfall before we start moving. I believe the people from the army will be very busy then, and they'll have no time to care about us. But will Robert last till then? Gilding worried. When you just made up your mind to go just now, I contacted Robert so that synchronize our movement with his. In doing so, the success rate will be much higher. I've successfully convinced him to hide for the time being. Neptune seemed to have planned the entire thing out perfectly. However, the hardest step is the last one. How are we supposed to destroy 3 super weapons right under the nose of 2 generals and 3 colonel generals? Gilding's eyebrows furrowed. The thing that gave him a headache was the combat strength disparity between them and the people from the army. Another reason for his headache was that they were going to fight 5 people. No matter what happened, it was impossible for all 5 of them to leave the super weapon excavation site. Even if a single person were left to guard the place, they would not stand a chance against them. The army probably already informed them about you spreading the information, which would only make them more alert. On the contrary, the last step will be the simplest. The Federation government weren't the only people who got news of the super weapon. Other forces have gotten it too. There will definitely be powerhouses just as strong as the generals. They'll be the ones dealing with the army's powerhouses. Neptune was a calm, collected player who had made full use of the information he received. This war in planet Konstlik is destined to be a great war that will be acknowledged by future generations for thousands of years to come. Chapter 83 Liberty Alliance. Gilding and Liliath patiently waited for nightfall. Neptune hacked the starport's system and under his control, the canopy at the starport admittance platform began to open. The starport's staff were scrambling to override the command but were unable to do so. In desperation, the system was completely shut down and they prepared to close off the canopy manually. However, they found themselves completely unable to take control of the mechanical contraption. That was Robert's doing. For him, the complexity of the machines left over from the war on planet Konstlik was child's play. It only took him a few seconds to take over the entire operation, allowing him to remotely control the machine from a safe distance. Robert and Neptune's joint effort had made it so that the starport was unable to control the admittance platform at all. The news about the super weapons and the army's name list was sent to everyone on the entire planet's smartwatches via a virus. This was all done by Neptune around the same time the canopy was opened. Among the interstellar pirates who had planned to leave the planet immediately, many were excited by the incident. In particular, a few powerful interstellar pirates with bounties of more than 100 million on their head thought that it was a good opportunity to improve their net worth. For the ambitious bunch, this chance was naturally not something to be missed. Starport authorities' intention to lock down the starport was revealed, which made the already hot-headed interstellar pirates even angrier. Chaos soon began to erupt as the crowds grew increasingly unsettled at the starport. It did not take long for the first foreign spaceship to arrive, which also happened to be a huge Golden Eagle-grade spaceship. After docking at the starport, a tiny silhouette appeared at the cabin door. Gilding narrowed his eyes and looked over to the spaceship. It looks like an old lady. It was indeed an old lady with her hands behind her back as she walked slowly out of the spaceship. She was quite petite, half a head shorter than Liliath. Understandably her steps were tiny as well. She looks familiar. Gilding could not remember where he had seen the old lady before. Name: Grandma. Sex: female. Age: 513. Alignment: Liberty Alliance. Gene level: level 10. Special ability: unknown. Other abilities: 10 stars martial arts practitioner. Special title: National Treasure. Neptune retrieved the old lady's information quickly. 513 years old. Lilith was a little shocked at the old lady's age. I remember now. She's grandma, a powerhouse that it was awarded the title of National Treasure by the Lord. I read a news piece about her when I was 5 years old. Gilding recalled that the old lady was a celebrity in Dragonsaw Cosmic Nation. I haven't heard about her in years. I actually thought she had died. Just when Gilding lowered his voice, he noticed the old lady was looking in his direction. She flashed a peace sign at him through the transparent cabin window with a smug smile on her face. She seemed to be saying, "Little brat, are you disappointed that I'm well and alive?" Gilding suddenly wondered if she was able to see through the spaceship's shield and hear everything he said. Not only that, she even managed to spot him the moment he talked about her. Only at that very moment did he grasp the power of a level 10 gene body. Cold sweat beaded out of Gilding's back, but fortunately, Grandma did not seem to be interested in pursuing him. After a while, she looked away from Gilding's spaceship. "What's wrong? You don't look so good." Lilith noticed how pale Gilding's face was. "It's nothing." Gilding shook his head and diverted the attention to Neptune by asking, "Are level 10 gene bodies able to see through a spaceship's shielding system?" "As long as someone has perceiving or detecting ability that exceeds level 3, they'll be able to see through that sort of shielding." The reason she was able to hear what you said wasn't because she's a level 10 gene body. It's because she's a level 10 martial arts practitioner, though. Level 10 gene bodies normally do have extraordinary senses, Neptune explained. There were also 2 martial arts practitioners with powerful auras that walked alongside Grandma. It seemed that they were also from the Liberty Alliance. As their figures disappeared from the starport, the people sent by the army to monitor the starport suddenly became terribly busy. It did not take long for a second spaceship to arrive at the starport. It was a huge black spaceship with no markings on it, which made it impossible to tell what alignment they were. After the giant spaceship docked, only one person emerged from the hatch. The man wore a black cloak that covered his whole body and a silver mask that concealed his identity. Neptune tried pulling up information on the person but found nothing. "That mask seems to have a special shielding effect. Their face is completely covered and even the shape of the body is concealed as well. I can't extract a shred of data." When the person exited the hatch, their figure suddenly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, they appeared atop a tall building hundreds of meters away. The figure darted away swiftly in the direction where Grandma was headed. Before nightfall, 23 spaceships had landed at Planet Konstlik's starport, one after another. With the exception of one commercial spaceship that came for business, the remaining 22 spaceships were all from the super weapons. "It's almost time. The 2 of you should get ready. Don't forget to bring the single-use combat consumables that Robert left for the 2 of you. You may need it later." Neptune had them prepared as he saw the sky darken. After they got everything ready, Gilding and Lilith walked toward the cabin hatch. As he grabbed Lilith's wrist, his level 7 ultimate arts was fully activated. After a short pause, Neptune said, "Now." Suddenly, the hatch opened, and Gilding pulled Lilith with all his might, leaping into his silent step. After 3 leaps, he entered a small alley near the starport. "Did anyone see us?" Gilding asked. "No, 2 of them were busy arguing, so nobody had time to look at our spaceship." Neptune was very sure. "You called them, right? What did you say to them?" Lilith was a little curious. "I called them via their wife's phone numbers and mimicked their voices to tell them I was pregnant. I thought they would be too overjoyed to continue monitoring, but instead, the 2 of them grew furious upon hearing that. They said that they've been working away from home for more than 3 months now, and why I had the heart to do that to them." Although the end goal was achieved, Neptune wondered why the reaction he got was completely different from what he expected. "Maybe they don't like children." Gilding scratched his head and could not understand the problem either. One Lilith on the other hand was snickering beside them with her mouth covered. "It doesn't matter now, let's move on to the next step." Gilding did not understand why Lilith was laughing either. He just simply shook his head and said, "Neptune, show us the road map." Chapter 84, Roadblock. Neptune projected a holographic map in front of the 2. The map was obtained by hacking into the intelligent devices of the 20 force fluctuations from the powerhouses in front of them, all of which had different strengths, and he was able to use that information to carve out a route. Almost all of the people in front of them were stopped by powerhouses from the army at random checkpoints. On the other hand, a small number of wave fluctuations were able to proceed safely, still moving forward. That meant that the routes they had taken were safe. There were 3 safe routes, and the routes where it was blocked by army powerhouses were marked according to where the signal from the intelligent devices dropped. Neptune retracted the holographic map and transmitted the road map into Gilding's brain. "Lili, follow me," Gilding said. He also said to Neptune, "Make sure you keep an eye on her. If she can't keep up with me, tell me and I'll slow down. Don't worry, I'll watch over Lili. You just focus on following the right route." Neptune answered. "Are you ready?" Gilding asked Liliath. "Yes." Liliath nodded vigorously. Gilding darted out of the alley and Liliath followed closely behind. Gilding only used the Ultimate Arts Level 1 silent step. However, his steps were quiet and inconspicuous enough to ordinary people. Furthermore, he maintained his speed at a level that a level 2 gene body could keep up with. Liliath's pupillary abilities allowed her to lock in Gilding's position so that her pace was also peculiar, allowing her to follow Gilding closely behind, about 10 meters away. After journeying for a bit, Gilding turned back to check on Liliath. When he saw that she was still steadily following from behind, he felt slightly relieved. "There are strong energy fluctuations up ahead. According to the points you've marked, it's probably the place where one wave of force is being blocked," Gilding said to Neptune. "It seems that the people being blocked are also extremely strong. They've been fighting for more than half an hour." Neptune also noticed that that group had only arrived at Starport when it was almost dark. They probably started more than half an hour before Gilding did. However, they were not so lucky because they encountered a major general from the army right after that. "It's very close to our route." "Remind Lili to slow down and quieten her breathing," Gilding said as he slowed down to assess the situation. Although Gilding knew that those people would not be able to pull out of their battle to stop Liliath and himself, they might alert others to block them. Therefore, it was safer to be cautious lest they were discovered by those people. At Neptune's prompt, Liliath also slowed down and quietened her breathing. Although she was not quite sure what was going on, Gilding would certainly have his reasons for doing so. The two passed the first battlefield at a slow pace. As it was a desert, the wind and sand were able to hide Gilding and Liliath to some degree. Most people who broke into the place did not have a clear route to follow. Instead, they only had a general direction. However, with the road map provided by Neptune, Gilding and Liliath were able to evade all army personnel. That allowed both of them to journey forward through a practically risk-free route. Soon, Gilding avoided their second and third battlefield. He also lamented the higher number of powerhouses that had fallen. It seemed that there were many people who could fight against the army's major generals. "Wait!" Neptune suddenly yelled right when Gilding and Liliath had just passed the third battlefield. Gilding and Liliath immediately froze in their tracks and held their breath. "What's wrong?" Liliath asked with a soft voice. Her pupillary abilities did not detect abnormalities. Neptune quickly said, "There is a wave of people behind you who are catching up. But fortunately they're not part of the army. I just tried to disrupt their intelligent devices, but their tracking route was not affected in any way. If they're not from the army, they shouldn't be much of a threat to us, right? If they want to follow us, we'll just let them. Let's just pick up the pace." Gilding knew that apart from Liliath and himself, anyone else who was brave enough to take the initiative to be involved in that whole thing had decent fighting strength. Although the people following them were not from the army, it was safer that they do not meet one another. Gilding and Liliath sped up and continued along their route. Not far away from them, a middle-aged man that was behind Gilding and Liliath raised his eyebrows. "We seem to have been discovered by two kids." "Boss, can I just run up there and kill them?" A young man behind the middle-aged man took out heavy firearms from his inventory and began to fill it up with bullets. "You don't always have to be so violent, you know. Don't scare the kids." The middle-aged man reached out and rubbed the stubble on his chin. "Let's just continue following them. These two little guys have successfully avoided the third battlefield and saved us a lot of time. Follow my lead. Just go straight and kill anyone who dares to stop us during the journey." Another middle-aged man who looked like a slightly younger version of the first middle-aged man shouted, "My dear brother, although the people manning the roadblocks are major generals, they're all level 8 gene bodies. If we take half an hour to beat them, we'll have wasted precious time. Since we started following these two kids, we've used less than half an hour to reach this spot." The middle-aged man explained. "Half an hour, an hour and a half." The other middle-aged man counted his fingers. After a while, He stormed off. "Scholl, you know I'm bad at math. Remember our young math teacher whose life was taken away?" "Oh yeah, it's because you snapped our math teacher's neck when you were 7. As your older brother, I can't help but express my dissatisfaction, so I'm just going to ask you one thing. What goes on in that dopey head of yours?" The middle-aged man smiled subtly while covering his mouth. "That's my line, muscle man." The other middle-aged man stormed away before he was pulled back by several men. At that moment, a low voice said, "Boss, we seem to have lost track of the 2 kids." "Hey muscle man, how about you hand over the boss position to me before it's too late? I've been telling you for ages, you're not suited to be a boss. How could you lose 2 prepubescent kids?" "Mr. Military Advisor, can I knock him out and sell him to the army?" The middle-aged man turned his head to face the person beside him. "Theoretically, that won't be possible. That's because you're an interstellar pirate boss and the people from the army will definitely round you up together with him. However, there are a number of major generals around here. I'm sure you can convince one of them to do a personal transaction. As far as I know, this kind of transaction is pretty common. You can get money and they can get that arrest added to their record of meritorious services. A classic win-win situation. I heard Major General Lancelot does a lot of these transactions. I think he's around here this time. I'm sure you can ask him about it." Hey, you know I can hear everything you guys are saying, right, Scholl? When I see that Lancelot guy, I'll rip his head off before you guys even get the chance to make the transaction." "Ha ha ha ha. I'm so smart." Gilding and Liliath, who were not too far from the group of men, started to pick up the pace. "The people behind you seem to have lost you." Neptune told them the good news. Right after that, he immediately yelled, "Stop!" Gilding and Liliath immediately stopped in their steps and held their breath once again. The 4th battle had just ended and the 2 of you accidentally stepped into the battlefield. If anyone is still battling, just conceal your breathing and sneak away. But now, Neptune had horrible news. "You guys have been noticed." A handsome young man in a white overcoat appeared in front of Gilding and Liliath. His overcoat fluttered in the wind and Gilding caught a clear glimpse of the word printed on the back, "Army." The Major General from the army. Gilding's pupils instantly shrank. Chapter 85, Bloodsack Pirates. "Stop right there, don't move." Neptune yelled at Gilding and Liliath. He was certain that Gilding and Liliath had no means of escaping the hands of the bastard that stood in front of them. He was a Major General in the army, a rank 8 gene body powerhouse. If the duo made any sudden moves, he might kill them on the spot. Name, Lancelot. Gender, male. Age, 33. Occupation, Federation Army soldier. Military rank, Major General. Gene level, rank 8. Special ability, Vine Whip. Ability description, able to summon vines growable in each different environment and make various attacks such as bind, poison, sting, and whip enemies. Highest capture reward, 3.8 billion star credits. Neptune pulled up the opponent's information almost instantly. Sifting through the information, he noticed that this Federation's Major General practiced ritual dismemberment. Every time he caught someone, he would slice off a part of their body and use it as a sacrifice. If he was in a good mood, he might only cut off a finger. If he was in a bad mood, he would chop off the head and take the rest of the body as a sacrifice, keeping the head as a sign of a victorious battle. It was due to this practice that a lot of the army's higher-ups had objections toward him, but his grandfather was the vice chief of the army, so there was nothing anybody could do. The chief of the army was the person in charge of making decisions for the army. The vice chief's authority was at the same level as the marshals. As for the army's major generals, their level of authority in the Senate was similar to normal senators. This guy, Lancelot, nobody wanted his presence there. But when he heard news of a super weapon from his grandfather, he made a fuss about wanting to come. The vice chief was helpless and had to allow Sharp to bring him here, but he also ordered Sharp to ensure Lancelot did not get too involved in the matter. They knew very clearly that this mission was not as simple as just digging out a super weapon. This guy was also mentioned in the list of 6 major generals Neptune computed. Back then, Neptune suspected that if he got word of the super weapon, there would be a high probability he would want to get involved. I've run into 2 mice. Lancelot looked 10 years younger than his actual age. He had inherited his mother's looks. That face on a man's body was indeed incredibly attractive, but he still had a tinge of femininity to him. I've seen your bounty offers somewhere. Lancelot was in no rush to do away with the duo. He, too, was very aware that they had zero chance of escaping. "You're Gyuding, aren't you? The young man who recently bombarded Fen Yuan. I have to say, you sure have guts, and a great deal of luck too." 72 armor-piercing cannons unexpectedly malfunctioning at a key moment. "I, too, didn't like those port authorities much. I think you're right down my alley." "How's this then? I won't kill you too. I'll cut off a hand from each of you instead, then send you guys to the federal prison." Upon seeing as to Lancelot's nonchalant demeanor as he asked the question, Gyuding realized this guy was just as the rumors said. He has a strange mind and a twisted one at that. "I'll give you guys 3 minutes to consider which hand you want to keep. I'm not usually this kind to others, you know." Having said this, Lancelot sat on a stone and looked down to start the timer button on his intelligent wristwatch. Lilioth turned her head to give Gyuding a look that meant to split up and run. Gyuding's eyebrows knitted slightly, and he shook his head. He was very aware that splitting up to run was no use either. If the two of them chose to run, they would be easily slaughtered. "Neptune, lure people who were following us earlier to our location." Gyuding covered his mouth and whispered inconspicuously. Neptune immediately recognized what Gyuding's plan was and hacked into the group's intelligent wristwatches, marking Gyuding's current location with a red dot before emitting an alert. "My wristwatch seems to have picked up a signal." "This way, second in command, don't go. It could be a trap," the military advisor shouted, but before he could finish speaking, the second in command had already taken off. "Boss, we follow him." The head of the group ran off in the direction of his brother. The other people in the team followed closely behind. The middle-aged man was not too far from Gyuding's location. It would only take roughly a few minutes for him to reach. However, Neptune calculations showed that they still would not reach in time. "There's not enough time," he reminded Gyuding. "Major General Lancelot." Gyuding knew his only hope would be to stall for time and opened his mouth after a moment of silence. "I know a thing or two about the super weapon. I think we can cut a deal." "Tell me what you know first." Lancelot was no fool either. He wanted to wring some information out of Gyuding before he agreed. "The Federation Army noticed 3 super weapons this time, and they're all artifacts of the Paleo-era mechanical civilization. From what I've gathered, I've come to understand that these 3 super weapons are all in perfect condition. There has been no damage whatsoever. They can be used once the owner is recognized." As Gyuding spoke, he observed the other party's expression. "Moreover, these 3 super weapons aren't your regular super weapons, they're the source of the mechanical civilization's destruction. Just one attack can single-handedly destroy a star sector." Judging from the shocked expression on his face, the army man in front of Gyuding probably had not been aware of the extent of the super weapon's power. "How do you know these things?" Although he was utterly shocked at heart, Lancelot was not an idiot. He would not so easily believe Gyuding's words. "Sorry, this I can't say. But I can tell you a secret. I hope to exchange this secret for my and my partner's freedom." As Gyuding said this, Neptune's voice sounded in his ear. "They'll arrive in about 10 seconds. How do I know this secret of yours is worth 2 lives?" Lancelot did not want to agree that easily, but he also wanted to know just what the secret Gyuding was talking about was. "If you don't want to know, I can wait until after I enter the federal prison and tell other people." Gyuding felt that the group was closing in on his location. "Okay, I agree." Lancelot assented after falling silent for a moment. "Tell me what this secret is." At that very moment, a muscular middle-aged man dashed toward where the 3 of them were standing. "Yet another fly has appeared." Lancelot obviously did not see the other party as a threat. "Hey, punk, tell me that secret." "That secret is, I've actually been stalling for our comrade's arrival." Gyuding grinned, then turned to look at the muscular man. "Uncle, this guy is the army's Lancelot." Neptune taught Gyuding to say this. Neptune had heard this team's conversation earlier and was certain that the name Lancelot would trigger him to attack. "Hee, so you're Lancelot. As long as I do away with you, Muscle Man can't sell me off." Once the brawny man heard Gyuding say the other party's name, he charged at Lancelot. Very soon, the brawny man's teammates all arrived. "You guys are the 2 kids who were in front of us, aren't you?" A middle-aged man who looked similar to the brawny man walked toward Gyuding and Lilioth. He had 3 more scars on his face, and his stubble was slightly thicker. After spotting Lilioth, His previously stern expression changed into a smile. He squatted down and retrieved candy from his inventory. "Little girl, Uncle here has candy. Do you want to eat it?" He softened up so quickly. Gilding had been anxious about how to deal with these people. Safe to say he was shocked to see them act so kindly. "That's right. Our captain's a renowned Lulukan," the military advisor at the side explained to Gilding. "You guys are." Seeing that the uncle was completely harmless toward Liliath, Gilding was relieved. "We are the Bloodsack Pirates. That Lulukan is our captain. The other brainless advocate of violence over there is our vice-captain, Ulrif, who is also the captain's little brother," the military advisor explained. "Bloodsack. What a weird name." Gilding felt the name was odd. Actually, this was caused by Captain's inaccurate pronunciation when he was registering our pirate crew's name. He wanted us to go by the name Blood Wolves, but sometimes his L's and N's aren't distinct. The military advisory once again opened his mouth to explain. All right then. Gilding felt he did not have the energy to question them. Xlan means blood sack, whereas Xlang translates to blood wolf, wolves. Chapter 86, Lex's Purpose. Although Bloodsack Pirates was a weird name, they were quite a strong unit. Captain Lex and Vice Captain Ulrif both had a rank 8 gene body, and the bounties on their heads were each over 10 billion star credits. Their military advisor, Alcha, had a rank 7 gene body, and the rest of the members in the group all had gene bodies of at least rank 6. The strength of the group was within the top 20 of the Dragons or Cosmic Nation. However, this team's luck was not good. Every time anything significant occurred, they would arrive late due to various reasons. This caused them to be underexposed in the media, and not many people knew of them. "Hey, shouldn't you guys jump in to help? Your vice-captain seems to be getting badly thrashed." Gilding pointed at the two people engaged in fierce combat on the battlefield. Although the phrase used was engaged in fierce combat, it was more of Ulrif getting beaten to a pulp. Numerous thick, large vines with thorns were summoned by Lancelot. They sprouted from the sandy terrain, attacking Ulrif like vicious pythons. According to information from Neptune's search, that species of vine was known as the desert poison dragon. Its barbs were coated in a large dose of neurotoxins. The moment a regular being makes contact with the barbs, the piece of flesh that makes contact will be sliced off. To make matters worse, their nervous system will be severely damaged, rendering them completely paralyzed. Ulrif, against Gilding's expectations, did not make any attempt to dodge. He was completely relying on brute strength to defend himself, letting those unrelenting barbed vines whip him. Before a minute had passed, he was reduced to blood and flesh. "Do you know what my favorite combat environment is?" Lancelot smiled as he controlled the vines whipping Ulrif. "One is the desert, another is the ocean. It's because these two environments let me summon the largest vines. The vines are unbreakable, and they have poisonous thorns as well as venom." One strong vine wrapped around Ulrif's calf then scaled up his body. Very quickly, it hid Ulrif tightly bound. The barbed thorns sank deep into Ulrif's skin, embedding itself in his flesh. Then, the vines coiled around him, slowly encasing Ulrif, all while making deep slices across his body like gullies in the land. A second and third vine followed suit in binding him. In an instant, Ulrif's body had not a single piece of untouched flesh. Still, the rest of the Bloodsack Pirates stood and watched in silence. Lex did not look at Ulrif's battle at all. He was still offering Liliath candy. Seeing Gilding pointing at the battlefield with a look of horror on his face, Alcha smiled and shook his head, explaining, "Our vice-captain's ability is very special. He can absorb the pain inflicted upon him and utilize it as his own before then releasing it onto his opponent several times over." "Are you saying he can replicate the opponent's moves?" Gilding was a little curious about this ability. "Not the moves. The effects of the moves." Alcha shook his head. "What the opponent is using now is a vine attack. Even if Vice-Captain uses his fists to retaliate, when the time comes, the effect produced on the opponent's body will also be a vine attack. Using a fist to produce the effect of a vine." Gilding felt this ability was very special. This ability is actually a type of cursing ability. The more damage is done on the person, the stronger the curse on the attacker becomes. When the damage received reaches a certain point, the curse will be complete, and the power of the curse will be unleashed on the attacker, dealing loads of damage instantaneously. Neptune's explanation cleared up any confusion Gilding had on how this ability worked. After the bloodied Ulrich had been attacked by Lancelot for close to 10 minutes, his body was trembling, but he still stood tall. No matter what Lancelot did to him, he did not fall. On the other hand, Lancelot was growing increasingly impatient. He had a feeling of dread that there was something off about the situation, as the other party was also a rank 8 gene body like himself. Moreover, he had only just entered the rank 8 gene body. For the opponent to have no way to retaliate, logically speaking, this was a little suspicious. After not being able to make his opponent fall after ages of fighting, his suspicion that the opponent was baiting him into attacking grew stronger. With this thought in mind, he secretly summoned a few vines which were hidden beneath the sand and attacked the weakest of the group, Lilioth. He already decided to stop his tussle with Ulrich. As for the interstellar pirates present, he would kill as many as he could before going down. The moment the vines appeared, Gilding seemed to see Lex move slightly, and all the vines splintered in an instant. "What did your captain just do?" "Our captain is a swordsman. Apart from that, he has a special ability, speed," Alcha said simply, not giving a detailed explanation on this ability. Speed ability. He can increase his speed as well as lower the speed of other things within a certain range. Neptune provided Gilding an explanation. This is an advanced ability and is exceptionally difficult to awaken. What you saw just now was him speeding up his movement sevenfold while simultaneously decreasing the speed of the vines sevenfold before he sliced the vines into pieces in an instant. As none of Lancelot's attacks seemed to be hitting his intended target, he finally realized that in this group, the strongest was not the guy he was stuck in battle with, but someone else. He recognized the magnitude of danger that the other party posed from just a single display of their abilities. He looked somewhat cautiously at Lex. The power that the other party displayed earlier was a sign of already being at the peak of rank 8 gene body. He was no weaker than the army's colonel-general level powerhouses. Having witnessed Lex's power, Gilding was slightly relieved. With him to protect Lilioth, there would probably not be any issues regarding her safety. After eliminating the threat to Lilioth, Lex slowly stood up and turned around, his gaze landing on Lancelot. "You're dead, muscle man. This is my battle." Ulrich's head did not even turn, but he seemed to sense Lex's killing intent, so he opened his mouth to deter him from interfering. "I'll give you 3 minutes final. If you don't get rid of this bastard by then, I'll personally take his head." After saying this, Lex turned away, smiling yet again at Lilioth. "Little girl, I'll chase off these bad uncles for you." Lilioth looked at Gilding helplessly, then seemed to think of something. "Uncle, are you guys also going to where the super weapons are?" "That's right. Uncle is going to challenge Sharp to make himself stronger." Lex nodded. "You geese didn't come for the super weapons?" Gilding looked at Alcha. "Although our team isn't weak, the difficulty of obtaining something like that is still a little too high for us. We have self-awareness in this regard. Boss's main purpose of coming this time is to challenge the army's general, Sharp, to increase his understanding of swordsmanship as well as increase our exposure in the media," Alcha explained patiently. He glanced at Gilding and expressed a sincere opinion. "I think with your strength at its the current level, it's best you don't make this trip. There are many rank 9 and even rank 10 gene body powerhouses who have their eyes on these super weapons. There's no way the two of you can get your hands on them." "I didn't want to be involved either. But in some instances, it doesn't matter what you want." Gilding shook his head and smiled bitterly. Shortly after, Lilioth made a request to Lex. "Uncle, bring us to the super weapons." Chapter 87, The Calm Central Battlefield. On the battlefield, Ulrich knew the 3-minute limit Lex gave was not a joke. If he did not finish off the fight himself, Lex would interfere. Ulrich, who had been on the defensive up till then, suddenly pinched his right wrist with his left hand. At the same time, the various wounds on his body started vanishing at an imperceptible speed. Strange symbols started appearing all over his right hand. Those words seemed to come alive as they slowly slithered toward the center of his palm. His palm was slowly enveloped by what looked like a black fog. The scene looked strange yet somewhat eerie. That layer of black fog gradually dispersed. The vines met by the black fog started wilting speedily as if the life was being sucked out of them. Ulrich slowly stood up straight too and gave Lancelot a spine-chilling smile. "Gigolo of the army, our fight ends here." Lancelot seemed to have realized something too. Controlling even more vines, He increased the speed of his attack and tried to engulf Ulrich, wanting to gain back the advantage he had earlier. However, Ulrich's feet moved with a sudden burst of speed, and he charged directly at Lancelot. Lancelot manipulated the vines to bind him, but all of the vines wilted in an instant and could not restrain Ulrich in the slightest. In a flash, Ulrich appeared in front of Lancelot, smiling savagely at him. He placed his black fog-covered right hand over Lancelot's heart. Lancelot extended a hand out to stop him, but to his surprise, Ulrich's attack did nothing more than push him back a few feet. However, he soon noticed the black fog now engulfed the palm he had used to make the blocking motion. The layer of black fog seeped into his skin and weird symbols began to form, quickly spreading from his palm and covering his entire body in a matter of seconds. For a brief moment, the symbols completely disappeared, but a frightening sense of pain overwhelmed his body. He looked down at his own body. It had become a mess of flesh and blood in a flash, and the gorges on his skin were the same as the ones that had appeared on his opponent's body earlier. Very soon, he noticed his body was starting to have serious spasms, and he very quickly lost the ability to control his body. He knew that was the effect of the neurotoxin kicking in. He only then realized that his opponent possessed a cursing ability. He started regretting not focusing all his energy on killing his opponent from the beginning, but his consciousness was starting to fade slowly. Seeing Ulrich's sudden turnaround, Gilding and Liliath both felt a mix of awe and fear. When encountering someone who possesses a cursing ability, the only correct method of dealing with them is to kill them with the first attack. If they were not dealt with in this manner, the attacker would be in for a world of pain. Some cursing abilities' effect only lasts for a brief moment while others follow their victims to the grave. This type of opponent was one that nobody would want to face. As for Liliath's request, Lex was a little hesitant. He did want to go to the central battlefield, and aside from Ulrich, he did not plan on bringing any team members with him. This was because he was very clear that in the central battlefield, his and Ulrich's strengths were lone boats in a vast ocean, and they could already barely protect themselves. If they brought Lily, there was no question he would be hindering himself. Moreover, at a battlefield with that level of chaos, the probability of Liliath losing her life was extremely high. Lily, they've helped us enough. Gilding shook his head at Liliath, not allowing her to make her request. Uncles, thanks. Lily and I should be leaving. Gilding walked to Liliath's side. Ah, thank you, uncles. Liliath nodded and smiled at Lex. Seeing the two of them leave quickly, Lex shouted at Gilding, "Punk, take care of the little girl, or I won't spare you." "I will." Gilding waved, then he and Liliath very quickly disappeared from the Bloodsack pirate's vision. Kids are the most troublesome. Ulrich pursed his lips. "Let's return to the direct route," Lex said to his military advisor Alcha. "But if we meet other blockades, wouldn't that just be a waste of time?" Alcha felt this route did not make sense. "They're only major generals. I'll deal with them." Although Lex's words sounded arrogant, his teammates all knew their captain's words were not an exaggeration of his ability. After making this decision, they walked toward the central battlefield. On the other hand, Gilding and Liliath had snuck around the two remaining major generals and reached the central battlefield's outer boundary, successfully meeting up with Robert. "How did you manage to bypass so many blockades?" Liliath asked curiously. Robert retrieved 2 insects from his inventory. "I used mechanical insects to determine everyone's locations. Avoiding them wasn't hard." Liliath picked up the mechanical insects and noticed that the mechanical insects he crafted were remarkably realistic. Even with her closely examining it, she could not see anything abnormal about them. "How interesting." Gilding picked one up too and thoroughly examined it. He could not find any flaws either. "Mechanical insects are the simplest things in the mimicry machines. Back in our generation, if you couldn't craft a mechanical bug that was exactly the same as a real insect, you wouldn't be able to pass the mechanic apprenticeship assessment." Robert did not think this was a big deal. But now, this kind of craftsmanship is something only Grandmaster-level mechanics can do, he explained further. Liliath was surprised at the craftsmanship of the mechanical civilization's apprentices. "Do you know what the situation is on the central battlefield?" Gilding guessed Robert would have already made at least a preliminary check. "I used the mechanical insects to capture some footage. You guys can take a look." As Robert said this, He projected the video recording. Two of the army's generals stood at the top of two excavators. Another 3 colonel generals stood guard at the 3 corners of the pit. The rest were the general's people who were situated at the center. Gilding saw Grandma, whom he had seen at the port previously. She stood with a big and strong old man. So, he's someone from the Liberty Alliance. Lilioth determined the old man's identity after seeing him. You know him? Hearing Lilioth say this, Gilding looked at the old man too. He was the one who treated me to a sapphire at the bar that one time. Lilioth stuck out her tongue. But it seemed he was the only one who came from the Liberty Alliance then. I think they must have sent more people to help out after hearing about us. As the video moved along, Gilding even saw the black-robed masked man he had seen at the port. Apart from these familiar faces, there were also 3 teams of centaurs. Gilding and Lilioth had never met any of them, but it was obvious they were quite strong. The entire battlefield was a picture of harmony. Nobody made a move. Gilding knew this meant their group had no chance for the time being. Just then, another 2 people appeared in the video. It was Lex and Ulrich. Lex's gaze swept over everyone there and finally locked on Sharp, who was situated at the center. He tugged down on his collar and loudly yelled at Sharp, "Sharp, I, Lex, want to challenge you." After he finished yelling this, he jerked his head toward Ulrich and asked, "Hey, did you record what I just said?" Chapter 88. The main battlefield where the order fell apart. Is this guy here to poke fun? After seeing Lex, this was everyone's initial reaction. Still, some people immediately recognized Lex was dead serious. An army colonel general stepped forward. He was prepared to take the place of his superior in this battle. "Raj, step back," Sharp said in a stern tone. The robot insect's lens zoomed in. Sharp's figure was not on the tall side. His average-looking face was expressionless, and his posture was straight as a pole. If he was put into a crowd, one could easily see he was a soldier. If one had to list what distinguishable features he had, it would be that a sheathed black sword hung from the right side of his waist. Although the blade's scabbard was plain and mundane-looking, its craftsmanship was exquisite. If it was under any other circumstance, I'd be more than happy to exchange blows with another swordsman. As Sharp spoke, he was expressionless as usual. But unfortunately, as for today, I'm sorry. After he said this, he extended a hand to his blade, movement slow enough that even Gilding could see clearly. The moment he gripped the hilt, Sharp's manner suddenly became frightening, like an unsheathed Chengdo sword, sharp and dangerous. His right hand grasped the saber firmly, and he moved his arm in an upward motion, lifting the saber. Before the saber left its scabbard, the surface of the ground started quaking. Even Gilding, who was at the outermost edge of the battlefield, could clearly feel the movement beneath his feet. A roar sounded in the distance, and a huge ravine of which the bottom could not be seen appeared in the desert in the video. The ravine continued extending as it cracked toward Lex's direction. Just then, another person moved. It was that black-robed, masked man. 2 black handguns appeared in his hands, and he made 5 consecutive shots in a movement so quick it was imperceptible, aiming directly at 5 of the army's people. A gunner. Lilioth could not resist yelping in surprise. She did not think a gunner would appear in a battle of this caliber. Just as she was doubting whether bullets had any effect on these powerhouses, she was shocked to see not just 3 colonel generals, even Sharp and Wendell. These 2 generals of the army suddenly made dodging motions. After that, Lilioth and Gilding witnessed a shocking scene. After the bullets were dodged, in the instant they hit the ground, causing an enormous explosion. A scene like a volcano erupting unfolded before their eyes. What sort of special bullets are those? Gilding was a little dumbstruck as he watched this, and he could not help asking Lilioth. No, they're just regular bullets, only that they've been enhanced with his primary power. Neptune interrupted to explain. He knew Lilioth was also not quite certain what had just happened. A martial artist's primary power can be that terrifying? Although Gilding had heard of primary power before, he had never personally witnessed the destruction a martial artist who possessed primary power could create. It's because his primary power's level of practice is very high, and his primary power inherently has explosive properties, so it creates this effect. The masked man's sudden unprovoked attack completely put an end to the current peaceful situation. The old man with psychokinesis from the Liberty Alliance suddenly appeared in front of Lexi and reached out a finger. A semicircular translucent shield enveloped Lex and his brother. Sharp's blade ruthlessly slashed over the shield. After a moment, he returned it to its sheath, and the splitting ground finally stopped. "You're not ready to face Sharp yet," said the old man, turning his head to smile at Lex. Before Lex could thank him, the old man suddenly appeared in front of Sharp. Seeing the old man make a move, Sharp's gaze darted all over the place. He inhaled deeply. "Senior, after not meeting for so many years, you've become a general." The old man smiled wryly. "If I didn't have your guidance." Sharp seemed to have a history with the old man. "I had only taught you some basic swordsmanship back then. The level of mastery you have attained now stems from your hard work." The old man shook his head. "Let me see what improvements you've made in the years since then." "I'm sorry. The matter of the super weapons this time is critical." Sharp inclined his head slightly. His hand flashed through the air, and it seemed there was no gap in time before he had grasped the hilt of his saber and drew it out. The moment he drew the saber, an aura of powerful energy spilled out from the edge of the blade. The nearby air was shredded into nothingness, and hundreds of sharp, invisible blades flooded toward the old man like a tide. The old man cracked a slight smile. With one hand behind his back and another extended out, the attack that appeared so insanely vicious that even the ground trembled calmed instantly, and it was as if nothing had even happened. "Who exactly is he?" Gilding watched this with widened eyes. The full-force attack of the army's strongest general had been stopped with just one move of this guy's palm. Name: Van Arab. Gender: male. Age: 315. Alignment: Liberty Alliance. Gene level: rank 11. Special ability: psychokinesis. Ability description: the product of spirit being evolved to a certain point. It has many directions it can be further evolved as well as development possibilities. Other abilities: 10 stars martial artist. Special title: National Treasure. He's the fabled Van Arab? Gilding was shocked into oblivion. This name was not just familiar to Gilding. Hearing that name was like a crash of thunder in his ears. Van Arab was the previous marshal of the Federation Army. He had commanded the army for 30 years, and those had been by far the most peaceful 30 years the people had seen. This was until over 20 years ago, when he resigned from his duties as a marshal and withdrew from the Federation Army, joining the Liberty Alliance. It could be said that many of the powerhouses in the current army were single-handedly raised by him, and so that was why Sharp had that reaction upon seeing him. On another side of the battlefield, a colonel general had already pounced on the masked man, and another 2 colonel generals pounced on 2 of the opposing units. At the army's side, only Wendell stayed put to guard, but he was not resting. With a movement of his finger, a fearsome hurricane that spanned the skies and tore the ground formed, rolling over to the other forces. However, he did not take the initiative to attack the Liberty Alliance's Grandma. Grandma seemed to have no plans to take action and quietly watched the battle from the afar. The battlefield was in utter disarray. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. Nearly every type of natural disaster was present on that ground. "Are these guys human?" Lilith was full of shock as she watched the images displayed in the video. "Robert, how do you feel about us seizing the moment and slipping in?" Gilding said and grinned. "Let's not rush. This state of chaos definitely won't be ending anytime soon, and the army still has a general who's in high alert, only half participating in the battle." Robert shook his head. "That's right. Did you guys bring the single-use items I made for you?" Chapter 89, Robert's Plan. Upon hearing Robert's words, Gilding nodded. "We brought them." "You want to use them now?" Robert retrieved a metal apparatus that was the size of a grown person's palm from the inventory. "Both of you should look for mini excavators like this one. It would have been fine if it was just me. However, there are 3 of us now, so the passageway isn't wide enough." Gilding and Lilith rummaged around the inventory and very quickly found metal apparatuses that were the same as the one in Robert's hand. Robert took the apparatuses from their hands. Then, he pressed the start buttons of each mini-excavator in succession before flinging them toward the sandy ground. The apparatuses that were originally flat suddenly grew legs, looking as if they were daddy-long legs before they rapidly burrowed deeper into the sand. A deep hole soon appeared on the surface of the ground. Next, Robert pressed his hand on the ground, and a silver metal fluid quickly spread from his metal hand. It seeped into the sand, and at that instant, Gilding and Liliath saw the whole seem to change. A moment later, Robert stood up. "This is my special ability, creation. The thing just now that looked like liquid metal is actually countless nanorobots. As long as corresponding materials are present, they can create anything based on my instructions. I only let them reinforce the sand earlier. It'll be safer this way." They've finished excavating the first super weapon and are starting to excavate the second. Only a corner of it has been uncovered. The tunnel we dug directly reaches the location of the remaining two super weapons. When the time comes, I'll enter the two super weapons and program them to self-destruct after a sequence timer. After that, we'll leave this planet post-haste. Although the one that has already been dug out might not be able to be destroyed completely considering our circumstances, it should take extensive damage and become unable to be used for now. Robert explained his plan. "Even though we're walking underground, it isn't safe." Gilding expressed his worries as he said, "Powerhouses with detection abilities could still notice us. So, at least all the people on the army's side have to enter combat. Only in such a situation where they're too occupied to notice us do we have a chance," said Robert as he observed the state of the battle in the video. The atmosphere on the battlefield was intense. However, Wendell was half alert and not fully immersed in the battle. Nevertheless, soon after, the situation changed. The Colonel General who had been fighting the masked man finally found the opportunity to stick to him. The former wanted to finish him off in close combat because the close combat abilities of a gunner were usually not too strong. Right when everyone thought the masked man would be offed, the situation reversed. The masked man that was being attacked up close displayed a frightening close combat technique and killed the Colonel General on the spot as if he was trampling on a mere flower. The move he used made Gilding's eyes widen. That was an ultimate art. And it's an incomplete ultimate art. Gilding mumbled. All of it happened in the blink of an eye, so quick that Wendell could not lend a helping hand. Having witnessed his own subordinate die, Wendell became enraged. His body disappeared from the excavation site and then solidified in front of the masked man in a whirlwind. His handsome face displayed ferociousness for the first time. "I don't care who you are, you must die today." The reply the masked man gave was very simple. He lifted his gun and shot him. His response incensed Wendell even further. Wendell lifted both his hands and 10 rays of golden helices shot out like soaring arrows. The helices pierced through the air around them as they were aimed straight at the masked man's 10 vital areas. Wendell is focused on the battle now, but the Liberty Alliance's grandma still hasn't made a move. She's a rank 10 gene body. There's a very high probability of her noticing us. Should we continue waiting? Gilding's eyebrows furrowed slightly. "We can't wait anymore." Judging by the situation on the battlefield up until now, she probably won't make a move anytime soon. Furthermore, based on the army's excavation speed, they'll probably reach the second super weapons entrance in a little more than an hour. When that time comes, we won't have a chance anymore. She's from the Liberty Alliance, so her goal should be the same as ours, not wanting anyone to get the super weapon. Robert nodded at Gilding and then jumped straight into the hole. Gilding and Liliath followed him from behind. "You two go ahead, I'll seal the hole to avoid us being discovered," Robert said as he pressed his hand against the wall of the tunnel. Silver liquid flowed out once again, sealing the hole shut in an instant. Robert made his nanobots spread a thick layer of sand over the sealed hole to avoid anyone from noticing any abnormalities. Gilding felt something sturdy beneath his feet. It was the sand that had been treated. He felt like he was standing on cement. "Let's hurry, it's about 10 kilometers." Robert's eyes turned into two beams of light, lighting the path in front of them. He walked in front while Gilding and Liliath followed from behind. Neptune was in charge of monitoring the situation. He only had to connect to Robert and his robot detection circuits. To him, it was not something difficult to achieve. On the monitor screen, aside from Grandma, everyone else had descended into battle. Neptune monitored her closely to prevent her from sensing anything. The moment the three of them had arrived at a spot around 3 kilometers away from the super weapons, Grandma's brows became knitted. Grandma lowered her head, focusing her gaze on the ground. It seemed like she had sensed the trio's presence. "If my deduction isn't incorrect, we've been noticed by Grandma," Neptune said to the trio. After a moment of silence, Gilding made a decision. Tell Grandma that if the Liberty Alliance doesn't want anyone to take possession of the large-scale weapons, don't hinder our actions. Neptune sent a message to Grandma according to what Gilding had said. Looking at the intelligent ring on her ring finger that was notifying her about a message, Grandma was a little curious. She could count with her fingers how many people knew her contact number. Grandma tapped on her communicator and read the message. She noticed that the sender was displayed as none. After thinking deeply for a moment, Grandma replied with a message despite not knowing if the other party would receive it. "Tell me, what are you guys planning to do?" This time, it was Gilding's turn to fall silent. "Should we tell her?" Neptune asked in uncertainty. "Tell her that we can turn on the super weapon self-destruct sequences." Although Gilding was still unsure about the Liberty Alliance's stance, based on what he knew, the Liberty Alliance was a group of pacifists. Since the other party had already noticed them, regardless if they told her about the matter or not, it would not make much difference. The main issue was whether she would take action. Gilding did not doubt for a second that Grandma had enough power to collapse the tunnel Robert had dug and bury the three of them alive. Grandma very quickly received the answer she wanted when she saw their reply that said they could activate the super weapon self-destruct sequences. Although she was not sure of their identities, she knew that even if she asked, they probably would not answer her question. She lifted her head to look at the others on the battlefield and then slowly closed her eyes as if nothing had happened. "Let's go." Upon seeing Grandma's response, Gilding knew the Liberty Alliance's standpoint. Hence, the trio resumed forging toward their goal. Chapter 90, A Risky Decision. The trio arrived at the entrance of the super weapons without any incident. Robert only had to scan with his large, flashlight-like eyes before the entrance opened automatically. Gilding and Liliath entered behind Robert. Upon stepping past the entrance, Gilding and Liliath could not stop smiling. The super weapon was a spaceship so big that there was no comparison. Just by looking at it, Gilding knew that it was several times the size of a Golden Eagle model. This super weapon is over 300 times the size of the gray-faced Buzzard model. In other words, it's the size of 4 Golden Eagles. Neptune reported the results of his analysis to Gilding and Liliath. He felt that the two of them probably wanted to know some basic information about the super weapon. The reason why it's called a super weapon is because it's a spaceship that has over 100 batteries of various grades. Its most powerful battery can destroy an entire sector, and that's not an exaggeration. It also has artillery of various grades such as specialized armor-piercing cannons to counter warships, antimatter cannons for ranged attacks, and specialized intelligent particle beam cannons to lock onto single targets. Even a rank 11 gene body cosmic nation lord or army marshal would be heavily wounded, let alone rank 10 gene bodies. Also, Robert did not say a word from start to finish and only silently went deeper into the spaceship. Seeing Robert's response, Neptune fell silent. As artificial superintelligence, Neptune also had human feelings and could understand Robert's emotions. The duo followed Robert to the cockpit. Seeing the luxurious cockpit, bewildered expressions once again appeared on their faces. Robert stood in place as he slowly perused the cockpit's every corner. After a long while, he extended his hand and touched the armrest of the pilot's seat. His metal fingers brushed along the armrest, producing a sound that was heard when metal and metal rubbed against each other. He seemed to feel nostalgic. Gilding and Liliath did not disturb him, and Neptune only remained silent. "My comrades and I spent 13 years building the first super weapon." Robert spoke out of the blue. After another bout of silence, he headed for the console of the ship. His two hands waved across the console. About 3 minutes later, the screen in front of the console lit up, projecting a stereoscopic image. It was the mold of a concave palm. The complicated lines of the mold could only be faintly seen, but the model of the palm obviously resembled a mechanic's. Robert took a deep breath and then pressed his palm against it. When his palm met the mold, the stereoscopic image turned into the shape of a countdown clock. Robert's fingers moved directly over the stereoscopic image as he set the time of the countdown clock to half an hour. "Let's go." Robert turned around and nodded at Gilding and Liliath. The trio exited the super weapon and Robert closed its entrance before they walked toward the second super weapon. This time, Robert sped up his actions greatly, only taking less than 3 minutes before he completed programming the self-destruct sequence. "We must leave this desert post haste." Robert guided the duo to return the way they had come from. Not longer than 2 minutes in, while the three of them were walking out of the passageway, they heard a roaring sound. Then, the ground beneath their feet started quaking violently. The quaking was more than 10 times stronger than the one Gilding had felt earlier at the edge of the battlefield. Gilding and Liliath could not stand properly. What happened? Have we been discovered? Gilding's first response was to guess that the three of them had been discovered. We haven't been discovered. Sharp's attack just happened to land not too far in front. Moreover, because of his attack, a portion of the tunnel has collapsed. We have no way to get back. Neptune reported the terrible news. Robert, use 3 excavators and dig out another tunnel. Gilding immediately thought of a solution. Those 3 excavators were scraped together. I used regular metal for them in order to make it easier for you two to find the required materials. You could say they're single-use items. Digging through 10 kilometers is its limit from what I calculated before. We could retreat to the super weapon and fly away with it? Liliath suggested her idea. The self-destruct sequence can be cancelled, right? There's no way to cancel the self-destruct sequence. Robert shook his head. Besides, the moment we use the super weapon to take flight, the generals of the federal government would definitely contact the federal government headquarters immediately. Then, we'd have to face the pursuit of countless powerhouses. Their combined strength would definitely exceed the lord of a nation. We can't bear to deal with such a consequence. Gilding shook his head. Even if the federal government gets a hold of these super weapons, they definitely wouldn't use them under normal circumstances, let alone fly them around and show them off. Moreover, after getting a hold of these super weapons, I'm certain they'll sign agreements with other forces immediately, vowing not to use them indiscriminately. The other forces would ally themselves to the super weapons. Hence, it's not that realistic, being able to control them personally. Another 20 minutes to the explosion. Standing here, we're going to die even faster than those people from the army. Liliath pursed her lips. Robert, are there escape capsules on the super weapons? Gilding suddenly thought of it. There are, but the escape capsules can only be used on water, land or air. They won't work underground. Robert had thought of the escape capsules. Nevertheless, considering the place they were in, the escape capsules were completely useless. If they won't work underground, we'll take to the skies then. Gilding had an idea at once. Robert, bring us back inside the super weapon. If we leave by air, won't we be shot down by those powerhouses? Though they can't fly, Liliath expressed her worries. No matter how sturdy the escape capsules are, they can't be stronger than our gray-faced buzzard. Even if it was the gray-faced buzzard, in front of rank 10 gene body martial artists, it would be shot down in an instant. So we need Neptune to calculate the right angle and use the super weapon's body to block the powerhouse's attacks. Gilding's mouth broke into a grin. Robert immediately understood Gilding's train of thought. Good idea. Let's go back. Although Liliath still did not quite understand what Gilding meant, seeing that Robert's reaction seemed to approve the feasibility of his idea, she no longer made any more objections. The trio quickly retreated to the first super weapon that had its self-destruct sequence timer set. When its entrance opened, they entered one after another. Robert once again walked over to the console. His 2 hands moved rapidly, and the giant super weapon quickly started its power-on sequence. Hull in good condition. Spaceship functions in good condition. Energy left 33%. Robert somewhat excitedly pressed its startup button, and the body of the spaceship immediately started to shake. Meanwhile, everybody else engaged in the fierce battle on the battlefield felt the ground beneath them begin to tremble. All of them shifted their gaze toward the source of the quaking, the excavation site. Amid everybody's bewilderment, an incomparably huge super weapon rose up from the ground. If you just want to support me or have a particular novel in mind that you'd like to request, please join my Ko-fi or Patreon. The links are below. Once again, thank you Clan.